Alright guys, my name is Shervin. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be ranking every single credit card in Canada in 2025. Now, I made a ranking video about a year ago, and in that video, I tried to cover as many cards as possible, but there were a couple of cards that were missing and everyone made sure to let me know about them. So I am going to cover all those cards that were requested by the commenters in that video, and also, it has been a year, so some of these cards have changed slightly here and there. So we're going to do an updated list and we're going to cover every single credit card. But before we get into it, I just want to let you guys know this is just my own opinion, right? So there are some cases where some cards are just factually better than others, right? Like if two cards have the exact same fee and exact same features, but one just gives more cash back than the other one, then that's pretty simple, right? Like that one is clearly just factually better. But a lot of the time, that's not the way it goes, right? A lot of the time, either one has a higher fee and better features, and you got to assess, is the higher fee worth it or not? Or in some other instances, maybe one card has a lot of good cash back, but another card has a lot of good features. So how do you compare those? Is the higher cashback more important or the features more important? Or for example, there could be a scenario where two credit cards both have high cashback rates but on different categories, or maybe a combination of any of these scenarios. The point I'm trying to make is that it gets a little bit more complicated as we start ranking these cards, because in some instances, it's not actually clear cut which one is better than the other. So I'm going to be using a lot of my own personal opinion, a lot of my own experience with these cards, and I'm trying to think which card is best for most people. Now, just because a card is rated lower in like B or C or something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not for anyone out there, right? There could be very specific use for it, and I'll try to explain it as clearly as possible. Also, I wanted to be fully transparent with you guys. I do have referral links to most of these cards, but again, I have it for most of them, so it really shouldn't affect my ranking or decision making in any way, shape, or form. But just keep that in mind while I'm ranking them. And also, if you want to sign up for any of these cards, again, the referral links are all in the description down below, where if you use those links, you'd also be supporting the channel in the meantime, which I always appreciate. And for some of these cards, not all of them, unfortunately, but for a couple of them, I also have a rebate link where if you use that link, you also get an additional rebate from Simplii Wealth. So for example, if you sign up for a specific card, and I'll make sure to mention which cards these are, in addition to the sign up bonus that you get from the bank or from the financial institution, you also get another $50, $75, $100 rebate on top of that from Simplii Wealth. So if you are signing up for those cards specifically, then you definitely want to make sure you use those links to get the additional rebate and sign up bonus or whatever as well. So with all that said and done, let's get right into it. We first start with the Amazon card. Now, I've had the Amazon card for a couple of years now, and when I first got it, it was actually a lot better. And recently, it's not as useful, and I'll explain why that is, but I'll probably put it somewhere on B or C. I'm going to put it in C for now, because I anticipate there to be a lot of cards that go into B. But if B is looking a little light later on, I might move it up just a little bit. But yeah, the Amazon card gets you 2.5% cash back for any purchases from Amazon. Now, that used to be a good figure, but there have been other cards that have come out recently with no annual fee, which get you pretty much the same amount on everything, right? So when you have cards like that out there, you don't necessarily want the Amazon card, right? So it's okay. It's not bad. It has no annual fee, so that's a good thing about it. So if you get it, it's no big deal. So I do have it, and it's still open just because it has no fee. And, you want to make sure you keep your cards open once you get them, because, if you close them down, it hurts your credit score. But I pretty much never use it, not even for my Amazon purchases. So I do have it, but it used to be a lot better, but now it's not that great anymore. Now, next up, we have a couple of Amex cards. So I'm going in alphabetical order, by the way, so that because there are so many cards down here, I believe I counted it's like 80 or something like that. So I'm going in alphabetical order so that it's easy for everyone to know where each card is. So we're going to start with American Express, of course, and I'm just going to start with the ones that I think I've covered the most on my channel. So we'll leave the Aeroplanes one for the end because they get a little more complicated. So the green card probably goes somewhere around there, like B or C. I'll put it in B for now, but it could drop down to C very soon. So it gets you 1 point basically for every dollar spent, which is okay. It's not that bad, but there are definitely cards that are getting you a lot better. The good thing about the Amex points is that you can transfer them to other partners. So for example, if you want to transfer to Aeroplan, or if you want to transfer to Flying Blue Mile, stuff like that, you can transfer it at a 1-to-1 ratio. And that's a very good feature to have, because that means that you can redeem those points in an area where you can get the most bang for your buck, right? So if you want to fly domestically within Canada or from Canada to the United States or something like that, then you can transfer them to Aeroplan where you can use it there. Or if you want to, let's say, fly to Europe or something like that, then you can transfer to Flying Blue Miles where you get a very good redemption rate for long haul flights as well. There are a couple other cards that are much better. So for example, we have the Amex Cobalt card. This one is in the S tier. So this is the card that I personally use the most often. And the reason for that is because this card gets you 5 points on every dollar spent at restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and groceries, as well as 3 points on streaming services, 2 points per dollar spent on gas, transit, and rideshare, 1 point per dollar spent on everything else, and you would also get an additional point if you're, booking your travel through Amex Travel. Now, this card is mostly a great option just for the 5 points that you get on groceries, restaurants, bars, and coffee shops. And the reason for that is, one, those are what we mostly spend our money on, at least day-to-day purchases. I know that travel is also a big spend for most people if you travel a lot, but just for the average person out there, most of the time we're spending our money on either groceries or just going out, dining out, or getting a coffee with a friend or something, getting a drink or whatever. That's usually where most of our spending goes. So if you're getting 5 points per dollar spent on all of that, and again, those points, remember, you can transfer them to other partners. That means that you could transfer them to Aeroplan and maybe redeem them at like 1.5 cents per point, which would be a value of 7.5% value back per dollar spent on all those things that you're spending on. Or if you transfer to other partners such as Flying Blue Miles, then you can find amazing deals, particularly if you're trying to book travel, like business class travel, stuff like that. I've made videos about this before, but if you look for the right deals, you can easily find 2 cents per point, or maybe at some points if you look like for a little bit and find the best deals possible. Sometimes you find amazing deals where you're basically getting 3 cents per point, 4 cents per point, 5 cents per point, something crazy, right? So the points are actually very valuable, particularly if you're flying long haul flights, right? And particularly what I found is that Flying Blue Miles is the best partner to transfer over to for those long hauls, because there are times when you find amazing deals where you can redeem each point for a couple of cents, not just like 1 or 2, but 3, 4, 5, crazy numbers, right? So if you can redeem them that way, let's say you redeem it at 3 cents per point, which again, it's not crazy, like those are easy to find, not easy, but you got to look a little bit, but you are able to do it. It's not undoable. If you can spend it at 3 cents per point, that would basically mean that you're getting 15% value back per dollar spent on groceries and restaurants, bars, coffee shops, all that stuff, right? And again, that's assuming you don't do more. So it's a very, very good card. It does have a monthly fee of $13, which over the whole year, it adds up to like what, $156 or something like that, which is fine. It's not that big a deal. It's actually in the medium range of the fees, but again, it's very worth it for the fee, and also you get all the coverages that you need. You get the mobile device insurance, which means that if you buy your mobile phone with this card, and let's say you break your phone or you lose your phone or something like that, for the first 2 years that you have your phone, it's covered up to $1,000 per incident, and that basically means that you have a phone coverage for free, right? So without having to buy an Apple Care Plus or anything like that. Also, you have most of the insurances for travel, stuff like out-of-state emergency medical insurance, all that stuff, all the important information that you need. Again, I made a full video on this, so we're not going to go into too many details here because we're going to be here for like 5 hours. We have so many cards to get into, but make sure to check out my full video on that if you want to learn more about all the coverages that come with this card. There are only like very small improvements that are made on this with other cards that we're going to go over, but those are like cards that cost like $700 a year, $800 a year, something a lot substantially more. At this rate of like about $120, $150 a year type of card, you do get all the insurances that you can possibly imagine with this card, which is absolutely amazing. Now, speaking of a card that costs $700, $800 a year, we got the Amex Platinum Card. Now, this one's a bit of a controversial one, but this one also goes to S for me. But let me break it down, right? So the Amex Platinum Card Doesn't get you anywhere near number of points as something like a Cobalt does. So what this card gets you is 2 points per dollar spent on travel, plus an additional point if it's Amex travel. So it will be 3 points per dollar spent from Amex travel, and also 1 point on everything else, right? And I believe it's also 2 points per dollar spent on like food and stuff like that as well. Now, this card is actually not that great for its cashback, especially given the fact that, the Cobalt card costs about $156 a year, whereas this card costs $800 a year. So for that kind of fee, that cashback is pretty low. But you don't get this card for the cashback, you get it for the features. Now, this is not for everyone. I just want to say that right off the top. This is for only some people, for people who travel a lot, I would say. So this would apply to me. I travel a lot, so I do have this card as well. And the benefits of this is that, first of all, you get even more insurance coverages. Like, for example, one specific one is travel cancellation. So if you cancel your travel plans because something came up, maybe there was like a family emergency or something like that, or you just missed your flight, in those instances, that's not covered with some of these lower tier ones, like a Cobalt card, but that would be covered with the Platinum card. So they would refund your ticket up to a certain amount. And as well as that, there is unlimited access to airport lounges in over 1,300 locations across the world, right? So if you go to pretty much any airport in, like, within North America, Europe, and a lot of Asian countries, South America, most places, honestly, with very few exceptions, you would find at least one airport lounge there that you can go to. And, if you have a layover, you can go there. Or if you are, flying out from that airport, you can go there up to 3 hours before your flight. And in those instances, you can just go there and enjoy free meal, free beverages, a nice relaxing place where you don't have to be at the gate the whole time. So it's a very good card to have for people who travel a lot. So I'd say if you travel at least twice a year, or more, then this is a really good card to look into if you can afford it, of course. Like if $800 is like life-changing money for you, then of course don't put it on this credit card. But if you do have the income to be able to put a little bit of money into a credit card that is going to afford you all these amazing experiences, then you can look at doing that. And of course, it does cost $800, but you do get some of that back as well. Like, for example, there's a $200 annual travel credit, so you get $200 back right away there. So really, you only spend $600 out of pocket. And there's another $200 credit for food. So there are specific restaurants in each city that, if you go to that restaurant, and you can do it for like a date night or something like that, or if you can take out your friends and like treat them, or maybe a Christmas dinner or something, whatever it is, Valentine's Day. If you take someone with you there, then you can, have a great time there, and up to $200 will be covered by this card, right? So really, you do get back $200 just on the travel credit, which means that you spend it towards, like, I don't know, buying a plane ticket or whatever. Or again, $200 that you get for, those specific restaurants, the dining credit. That's $200, that's $400 that you're getting back right away every year. So really, out of pocket, you're only spending $400, even though you pay the $800 fee to get those $400. So the way I look at it is that this card costs me $400 out of pocket, and I get all these amazing features, right? And there's also like the concierge service, where like if you need help with booking a certain thing, getting access to early tickets, they can help you with that. There's a lot of great features with this card. Also, it's a metal card, which is a really good thing if you want to show it off to people or whatever. It's a really cool, it gets a reaction all the time. So it's a very good card to have if you can afford it and if you travel often enough. So I'd say at least twice a year. Even if you travel once a year, I'd still say it's probably not worth it for you. But twice or more a year, then you can start looking at it. So it's a great card. I love it. I put it in S, but I can easily say for most people, it's probably somewhere in B or C. But again, I am biased myself because I have the card. I love the card. So for me, it's in the S territory. Next up, we have the Gold card. Now, the Gold card is a bit of a confusing card. The Gold card is somewhat of a middle card. Like, it gets you some airport lounge access, but it's specifically to some of the worst airport lounges, to be honest with you. So it's the Plaza Premium lounges that you get access to, which in my experience are not that good. But at least it's something. But you get less points per dollar spent than the Cobalt. So let me actually bring this up so I can show you exactly. So here we got the Amex Cobalt card and the Amex Gold card side by side. And again, this is a very good tool if you want to compare two cards side by side and see how they differ from each other. This is again from Finley Wealth, which is the same website that I was talking about earlier that gives you rebates on specific cards. I will leave a link to this tool as well in the description down below if you want to use it to like check out two cards side by side, see which one works better for you as well. But here it actually shows you right away that, first of all, let's take a look at the fees, right? So this one has, like I mentioned, $156 a year, whereas the Gold card costs almost $100 more at $250, which is quite a bit. But what do you get for it, right? So you get a little bit of those airport lounge access, stuff like that, but what you really lose out on is all the points, right? So I mentioned that you get 5 points per dollar spent with the Cobalt on, dining, groceries, coffee shops, all that stuff. Here, you don't have that, right? So with the Gold card, you get 2 points per dollar spent on gas, groceries, and drugstore purchases. You have 2 points per dollar spent on travel and 1 point per dollar spent on everything else, right? So is it really that great? Probably not. I would definitely rather, as far as cashback score or points, I should say, go, I definitely would rather have the Cobalt card. It costs a lot less, and also you get so much more points. And as far as, the travel benefits go, like access, there's also a travel credit of $100, by the way. But as far as, the airport lounge access or the extra insurance coverages, as far as those stuff go, I'd just rather have the Platinum card. It does cost more, but you get like the good stuff, right? So you don't have to go to, unless if you really want the Plaza Premium lounges. I don't know if that's worth it, really. In my experience, there are some of the worst lounges out there. You do get a priority pass, but you don't get any complimentary visits. So you do have to still pay for those visits. The only complimentary ones are the 4 complimentary visits per year at the Plaza Premium lounges. So is it really worth it? Even if you, let's say, take off the $100 credit, because, you get a $100 credit, you can still spend that on your travel. So even if you assume they are the same price, still, like, I just rather have the card that gets me the better cashbacks, right? Or if I really, travel a lot, maybe I just rather get the Platinum card, right? So unless you're in this very specific bubble where you travel a lot, but you just don't have the money to spend on the Platinum card, and, you're like, it is what it is, I guess I'll take the hit on the points. Or maybe you get both of these cards or something like that. Again, I can see maybe some scenarios where you have the Gold card, but for most people, I just don't think it's worth it. So for that reason, I'm just going to put it in B, and a lower B, for now at least. Again, we'll take a look at this later on. If there's too many cards in one section, maybe I'll move some cards around. Then we get to the Amex Simply Cash card. So we have the Amex Simply Cash and the Amex Simply Cash Preferred. Now, the Amex Simply Cash I like better than the green card. So for that reason, I'm going to put it slightly above it at B. And I'm going to put the Amex Simply Cash Preferred in A. Now, what is the difference between these two? This is the no-fee version of the card. This is the paid version of the card, basically. The Amex Simply Cash card gets you 2% cash back on gas and groceries and 1.25% cash back on everything else. The Amex Simply Cash Preferred gets you 4% cash back on gas and groceries and 2% cash back on everything else. And also, in addition to that, the Simply Cash Preferred also has a lot of the same insurance coverages that the Cobalt does, right? So all those travel coverages, the mobile device coverage, stuff like that, you get that with the Simply Cash Preferred as well. Now, the Simply Cash Preferred is slightly cheaper than the Cobalt card. It's in the same range, but it's slightly cheaper. It's only $10 a month, so over a year, it's $120 a year, whereas the Cobalt was $156. But of course, the Simply Cash, the regular version, is free to own. Now, for most people, I'd say this upgrade is definitely worth it. And the reason for that is because for just $10 a month, you get all those insurance coverages, like travel coverages, mobile device protection. That itself is definitely worth at least $10 a month. Like if you get an Apple Care or something, it's probably the same. And on top of that, you get so much more cash back. You get, instead of 2% back on gas and groceries, you get 4%. So you get double those. And you also get 2% back on everything, right? So that's there's a lot of spending that doesn't fit into one of these high cashback categories, such as like groceries or gas or whatever. Let's say like, I don't know, you hire a contractor to work on like your house or something, or there's so many spendings that don't fit into any of these specific categories. On those ones, usually most cards don't give you a lot of cashback or points, whereas this one gets you 2% cashback across the board. And particularly, who I would say this card is mostly for is for people who don't really travel that much. The reason for that is because even though you do have the travel coverage and stuff like that, the reason why I'm saying that is because if you do travel a lot, then the points that you get from all these other cards, you can usually redeem them for a good value on travel. But if you don't travel a lot, then the points that you get, you don't really want to spend it on anything else, because on other redemptions, like if you redeem it towards a statement credit or redeem it towards rewards or stuff like that, it's usually very suboptimal. You don't really get that much value out of every point. You maybe get like 1 cent per point or maybe even less in some instances. So for that reason, I don't love getting a lot of points if you don't want to spend it on travel. If you do spend it on travel, then it's great, especially if you're smart with it, right? If you spend it on like long haul flights and stuff like that, you can get a lot of value from the points. But if you don't, then you might just be better off just getting cold hard cash, right? So just regular cash back, no points involved, and that's what you get with the Simplii Cash cards with both of them. And with the Simplii Cash Preferred, you get, again, 4% cash back on gas, groceries, 2% cash back on everything. That's a good amount of cash every year that you rank up, and you can just use it towards your own statement credit, right? So I do like it a lot. Again, I do have this card as well, and I use it mostly for gas, just for me, because it's the best card I have for gas. But again, for most other spendings, I don't really use it. Or if I have a spending that's like a huge spending that doesn't fit into any other category, I also put it on this card because, again, 2% cashback on everything. But for most other purchases, I just use my Cobalt card, right? So these are the 3 credit cards I have from Amex specifically. And again, each of them are for a different reason. I have the Platinum card for my travel experiences, just for the features that I get for it, not for the points. The only time I spend anything on the Amex Platinum is for travel, because it gets you a higher percentage or high points compared to these other cards. With Cobalt, I spend it on I use it for most of my spending. So this is stuff like groceries, dining out, coffee shops, all that stuff. I spend on this, and for gas specifically, or for stuff that doesn't fit into other categories, I use my Simplii Cash Preferred. Now, you don't have to get all these cards, right? I'm a little bit of a nutcase, but if you do want to like combine a couple of different cards, this is at least how I think about them, right? So you can think about whether that's something that you're interested in, or if you're just fine with one of them. You don't really have to have all of them and like fully optimize and everything, but you know, that kind of helps you break down what are your needs? What do you spend a lot of money on? Like if you're driving all the time for work or stuff like that, maybe gas is the most important thing for you and you don't travel a lot, you can go for the Simplii Cash Preferred. Or if you spend a lot of money dining out, you could go for the Cobalt. Or if you travel a lot, the Platinum. That kind of gives you an idea of how that works. Now, the 2 Aeroplan cards. So let's take a look at these 2 cards, right? And how they compare against each other. So the first one, the Aeroplan card is $120 a year, whereas the Aeroplan Reserve card is $600 a year. Now, that's quite a huge difference, right? That's a big jump. So let's see what each of them offer and if the higher fee is actually worth it. So first of all, you can see that there's a lot more insurance coverages included with the $600 version. So this is stuff like lost or stolen baggage, emergency out-of-province medical insurance, trip cancellation, trip interruption. These are not included with the Aeroplan card. Now, with the trip cancellation, that makes sense. That's usually something that's on the higher end of things. So trip cancellation, that's great, yeah. Whereas with stuff like lost or stolen baggage, emergency out-of-province medical insurance, this is something that cards like the Cobalt card do offer, right? And the Cobalt card is in the same range as this Aeroplan card. This costs $120, the Cobalt $156, the Simplii Cash Preferred was also $120. Those 2 other cards do cover that. So it's a little odd that this one doesn't. It's not a good start for this card. And also, let's take a look at the points that you get, right? So with the American Express Aeroplan card, you get 2 Aeroplan points per eligible purchase made with Air Canada and Air Canada Vacations, all right? And each Aeroplan point, by the way, is worth about 1.5 to 2 cents maximum. So that's usually what you can redeem it for when you're, redeeming it towards travel. If you redeem it towards other things, again, it's probably worth less than that. 1.5 Aeroplan points per, anytime you're dining or food delivery or whatever. And 1 Aeroplan point on everything else, right? So the 1 point on everything else is actually all right, but the other ones are not the best, right? So 1.5 Aeroplan points on dining, that's very low, right? Like, again, the Cobalt card is in the same range as far as the fee goes, gets you a ton more on dining out or coffee shops and stuff like that. And also, like, 2 points on Air Canada, yeah, I guess. But with the Cobalt card, again, you can get 2 points per dollar spent on, Amex travel, right? So as far as those, like, partner specific goes, it's whatever. Over here with the $600 version, you get 3 points per dollar spent on Air Canada, which is all right. It's not that bad. 2 points per dollar spent on dining and food delivery, which is, again, a very small improvement on this one. It's not like a huge jump. Like, the fee, imagine it this way, the fee is 5 times more. Whereas the cashback that you get, or the points, I should say, that you get on dining is only, a third more? Like, it goes from 1.5 to 2. That's not that great. And of course, you also get 1.25 points per dollar spent on everything else. So as far as just the points go, this card is definitely not it. But what this card, the real reason why this card is so much more expensive is because it gets you access to Maple Leaf lounges, and also it gets you a bunch of other stuff, right? So like the coverages and stuff like that we looked at here. And also there is a bunch of extra benefits, like the first checked bag with Air Canada is also free. You get extra points if you have an Aeroplan account and you keep track of points. In some instances, you might get free nights at hotels. Again, this gets very it's very detail heavy. I'm not gonna go too much into the details because we don't have that much time to spend here. That's basically it. And also you get the Amex if you booking through Amex Travel, you get some additional benefits if you're like booking some of the high-end hotels. This is something that you also get with the Platinum Card as well. You also get some stuff like the Nexus program rebate. Again, you have this with the Platinum Card as well. And of course, but this is the big one, right? So the airport lounge access and only the Maple Leaf lounges, right? So Maple Leaf lounges are there in Canadian airports and I believe some American airports. And then there's like a couple here and there, like in other international airports. So it's not exactly the most extensive network of airport lounges. Now, only if you mostly just travel within Canada, that's fine. That's not a big deal, right? But if you travel outside of North America as well, or even within the US a lot, then this is not the best one to go with. You would be much better off, spending the same amount or a little bit more on getting a Platinum Card. And yeah, the Platinum Card costs $800, whereas this one is $600. But remember, you get $200 back with the travel credit, $200 back with the restaurant credit. So you do also get a lot of that money back as well. So overall, I just don't see the point of the Reserve Card at all. Like the cashbacks or the points are very minimally higher than the regular version. And, it's just the features are not there, in my opinion, right? But even the regular version, again, some of the key features are missing, right? Like there's lost or stolen baggage or emergency out-of-province medical. This is probably the most important, right? This one definitely should be there. And again, Cobalt has it. Simply Cash Preferred has it. This card doesn't for some reason. It's odd. And, a bunch of these other stuff. There's no airport lounge access or anything like that. And, the points are nowhere near something like a Cobalt. So I don't like either of these cards, to be honest with you. But how do we rank them? So this one, the regular version, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely nowhere near Cobalt, even though it's in the same range, or even the Simply Cash Preferred. So I probably put this at either late B or early C. I'll probably just put it at a late B. The only reason I can see someone signing up for it is if they want Aeroplan points. But you know what? Actually, I'm just going to put it in C, because if you want Aeroplan points, you can just transfer your Cobalt points, right? So it doesn't even make sense there. So I don't really see any use case for this card. I would just say get the Cobalt card instead. And for this other version, again, the only use case I can see is if you specifically want Maple Leaf lounge access, but that's about it. Like there's nothing else about it that makes me say, hey, go get this card. So maybe I'll put this slightly ahead of this card. The higher points are not really worth it. There is actually some like good coverages that you get like with something like in Platinum Card as well, and also you get Maple Leaf. But again, I would just rather spend a little bit more, get the Platinum, get access to a ton more lounges across the world, get all the same features, and also, even though you're spending a little bit more, you do get a lot of that money back with those travel credit and restaurant credits. So I don't see really a world where either of these cards are really all that worth it. Now, last but not least, for the Amex cards, we have the Marriott Bonvoy American Express card, and this card costs $120 a year to own, and it gets you 5 points per dollar spent on Marriott purchases and 2 points per dollar spent on everything else. Now, keep in mind that these points are Marriott points and not Amex points. So it's not the same as the Amex points that you get with the Cobalt, because with those points, you can transfer them to other partners, and you can usually redeem them somewhere around like 1.5 cents or 2 cents, or in some instances, maybe even more if it's on long haul flights. Whereas with these, you usually can redeem your Marriott points at about like 0.8 cents, like 0.8 cents per point. So 5 points would basically be like 4% value back, and 2 points would basically be like 1.5, 1.6% value back, something like that. So is it great? Not really. There is one really good feature about it, and that's that you get one free night at Marriott hotels every year. Now, that alone could be worth the fee that you pay for this card, because Marriott hotels are not super cheap, right? So usually if you're booking a Marriott hotel, you're spending at least a couple $100s per night, I'm guessing, right? Even if it's super cheap, it's probably still like 200 plus, maybe 300 plus. So if you just use it for that one single feature, it's already pretty much repaid the annual fee, right? So if you're someone who does travel and stay at Marriott Bonvoy hotels on a regular basis, at least once a year, then this card will be worth it just for that one feature alone. Like, forget about all the cashback and all that stuff. Actually, cashback on the Marriott property specifically is okay, but all the other stuff, it's not that great. But the fact that you get one free night, that alone is worth a couple $100s, right? So that could be very well worth it. And you also get some credits if you have like a Marriott loyalty program. And you also get a silver elite status, right? Without having to like spend qualifying nights or whatever. You also get an elite status as well, which, helps you get like free upgrades or stuff like that. So that's pretty good too. This card is very niche. It's very specific. But if you are someone who, stays at Marriott hotels, I'd say at least once a year, because you have to pay the annual fee every year, right? If you stay at Marriott hotels at least once a year and just love Marriott and you don't want any other hotel, then for you, this card would make sense, actually. Just for that one feature alone where you get one free night a year. But for everyone else, not really yet. So I'm going to probably put it somewhere around like B, because it's a very specific card. I'll probably put it like here, because I can at least see like a use case much more than like a gold card or something. Gold card is very confusing to me, but with the Marriott card, I can see for very specific people, this could be like S territory, right? But for everyone else, it's probably like C. So I'll just put it like somewhere in the middle. I'll put it in B. So that, it's somewhere that makes sense for most people. Next up, we get to the BMO cards. And the first one we're going to take a look at is the BMO Cashback Mastercard, which is a very good card. It's going to go right into a low A, maybe early B. If there's too many cards in A, we'll readjust that later. But this is a very good card. I've had this card for, again, a number of years now. I used to use it a lot more before. I don't use it as much now, but it's a very good card. It gets you 3% back on groceries, cash back, and it's not points or anything like that. And it's completely free to own, right? So ever since I got the Cobalt card, I don't really use this card anymore, because the Cobalt card gets you 5 points on every dollar you spent at groceries. But the good thing about this card is that, unlike the Cobalt card where you have to pay a fee to have it, this card is completely free to own, right? So it has no fees. And even if you don't use it, like I don't use it anymore, I'll just still keep it open because it doesn't have any fees, so it's easy to keep it open. But if you're looking for a no fee card that, helps you get a lot back on groceries, this is definitely the go-to. It's the best no fee card for groceries. And yeah, it gets you like 1% back on other stuff as well, but that's not really that important. The important one is that it gets you 3% back on groceries. Now, this card, I know that right now, Finley Wealth is not offering any rebates on any of the BMO cards, but from the conversation that I've had with them, it is possible that in the near future, they might start offering rebates on them as well. So definitely check out the description down below for updates. And of course, you can also check out the Finley Wealth website as well for updates as well. And if any rebates are placed on any of these cards or any other cards that we're going to go over in this list, again, I will definitely update the description of this video so you should be able to find them there. Now, next up, we're going to take a look at the Eclipse card series that BMO has. So they have the Eclipse Rise card, they have the Eclipse Infinite card, and the Eclipse Infinite Privilege card, right? So we're going to take a look at each of them. So here I've brought up the Eclipse Rise card and the Eclipse Visa Infinite card, and here we can see basically what they offer. So the Rise card, of course, is free to own, whereas the Visa Infinite card is $120 a year to own. The Infinite Privilege card is, of course, a lot more. We're going to get into that in a second. But these two cards, let's take a look at them. So the Eclipse Rise card gets you 2.5 points per dollar spent on dining, groceries, and recurring bill payments. Now, the recurring bill payments part is actually pretty decent. The only issue is with the points, right? So the points that BMO offers are worth about 0.67 cents per point when you're redeeming towards travel, right? And even less on other categories. So it's not as powerful as something like an Amex point, nowhere near actually, but it's still okay. So 2.5 points would pretty much mean like 1.7, 1.8 cents per dollar spent, right? At max, like 2 cents per dollar spent. So on recurring bill payments, that's actually not that bad. About 2% value back on a no fee card on recurring payments is pretty all right, but on the other categories, it's just not good enough, right? So for dining, we're going to get into it. There is a card that has no annual fee that gets you 4% back on dining. We'll get into that in a second. So for that one, it's not good. And for groceries, we just went over another card that gets you 3% cash back and also has no annual fee. That's the BMO Cashback Mastercard, which I would definitely prefer over this. So this card, and of course, on all other spendings, it only gets you half a point, which, you know, given that points are 0.67 cents, half a point basically means like 0.33 cents, something like that. That's really, really low. That's like way less than 1% value back. It's 0.3% value back. That's really low. So it's not a good card. I definitely wouldn't go after this card, but let's take a look at the Visa Infinite card. The points are a little bit higher on this one, right? So it gets you 5 points per dollar spent at restaurants, fast foods, coffee shops, all that stuff, groceries, gas, and daily transit. Now, I like that they include a lot of different things. So it's not just, you know, dining and groceries. There's also gas, there's also transit and stuff like that. But again, the issue is that the value of the points are very low. Like if these were Amex points, this would be very, very powerful, right? This would be like right up there with the Cobalt, right? So basically it would get you everything that Cobalt gets on top of that gas and transit. But unfortunately, that's just not the case, right? These points are far less worthy than like an Amex point, right? Because, well, you can't really transfer to all those partners. And also, each of these points, when you're redeeming towards travel through BMO, they're worth a lot less. They're worth about, again, 0.67 cents. So 5 points, what is that? That's like, what, 3.5% value back, something along those lines. So it's not bad if this was a no fee card. That would be actually pretty all right. But because there is a fee, there's a $120 annual fee, it's just not really worth it. And again, 1 point per dollar spent on all the other purchases. So you don't even get 1% value back on everything else, right? Remember, the Simplii Cash Preferred Amex card, which again has the same annual fee as this card, which has $120. Yeah, it is waived for the first year, but after that, you are paying $120 every year. Remember, that card has the same annual fee, but that one gets you 2% cash back on everything, on top of 4% on grocery and gas. Here, you get less on grocery and gas, you get less on everything, and yes, you get more on stuff like dining, but again, there is other no-fee cards that get you more on dining. So overall, I just wouldn't recommend this card in any way, shape, or form. So both these cards are not looking good. They're both going to go to C for me. Until we look at other cards. So I'm probably just going to put them both at the end of C for now. There is a danger of them going to D if D is looking pretty empty. I don't think that's going to be an issue though. But now let's take a look at the BMO Visa Infinite Privilege card. And then after that, we can take a look at the World Elite Cashback as well. So the Visa Infinite Privilege card, it does cost you about $500 a year, which is quite a bit, so you expect a lot. It does get you a lot of these insurance coverages, like you got the mobile device insurance, you got all the important travel insurances, including emergency medical insurance. But the only issue is that it's for 3 days, right? So it's not that great. Trip cancellation, it does have that, so that's good. But yeah, overall, it could be better, especially for the price, right? So for $500, if this was like a $100 card, it will be fine. But for $500, you do want to see more coverages. But the real issue, right? That's not a deal breaker so far. The real issue is with the points, right? So again, remember these points, they are worth 0.67 cents per point. I know I keep saying that, but it's very important because it's very easy to conflate points with each other, right? You might see, hey, 5 points on Cobalt and 5 points on a BMO card. And that might feel the same, but they're nowhere near the same, right? These points are worth far less. So again, we got 5 points per dollar spent on grocery, dining, gas, drugstore, travel, blah, blah, blah. And again, only 1 point per dollar spent on everything else, which is again less than 1% value back on everything. So it's just not good. It's really not good. I don't like the points. Again, the features, there are some good insurance coverages, but again, at this price point, at $500, you should really see those everywhere else. You do have the Dragon Pass, which is for airport lounges, but again, like if you are spending a lot of money because airport lounges are so important to you, you would just get the Platinum Card, which gets you all the airport lounges, all the best ones, right? The Dragon Pass is okay. There are some decent ones, but it's not as good at covering so many areas. And if you're only flying domestic, then you don't really even need to spend that much. You could just get a card that gets you in either Maple Leaf lounges or maybe something like a Gold Card, which gets you into Plaza Premium lounges, which are not that great. But if you are only flying domestic, then might as well save the money, and you still get something better than like sitting at the gate. So overall, I don't think this card is worth it. It is maybe because of the features, I don't hate it as much as the other two, so there's something to look at. So maybe I'll put it just above the other two, but I still don't think it's really all that good or worth it. I definitely would prefer the Aeroplan Amex cards, which again, I don't think they're that good compared to all the other cards. I do prefer them over these cards, unfortunately. So the BMO Cashback Mastercard, very good. These ones, the Eclipse edition cards, if you will, not so good. But what about the Cashback World Elite card? So this is the paid version of the Cashback card that we looked at earlier. Now this card, again, $120 annual fee, which again is similar to the Amex Simply Cash Preferred. So we should be looking for similar numbers in order to, rank it in a similar sort of way. And again, you do see a lot of the same travel coverages, which is good. There is car rental accident, which is really nice. There is no mobile device insurance. That's something that's missing here. That's unfortunate. Again, the Simply Cash Preferred card does get you the mobile device insurance. But there is some other stuff. There's personal effects, car rental, personal effects. There's no trip cancellation. But to be fair, Simply Cash Preferred also doesn't have that. That's on the more premium Amex cards, not the Simply Cash Preferred. So the insurances are not that bad. The only big one that's missing is the mobile device insurance, which like some of these other cards have. It would have been nice if it was here. But again, given that it's not here, it's already a little bit behind, starting a little bit behind for me compared to like a Simply Cash Preferred card that has that for the same fee. But getting into the cashback that you get. So you get 5% cashback on groceries, which is, we'd love to see that. So it's more than the Simply Cash Preferred card, which gets you 4% back on groceries and gas. So it's more on groceries. You get 4% back on transit. So it's less on gas compared to the Simply Cash Preferred that Amex offers. So it's only 3% on gas. But to be fair, there are some people who don't maybe necessarily drive and they maybe use transit more. There is a maximum of $12 per statement. But the good thing about this one is that even if you get like the monthly pass, that should be fine, right? In most cases, that would mean like you would have to spend more than $300 a month on transit. And in most cases, I don't think that's it. Like here in BC, for example, I know that if you get a monthly pass, even if you get the most premium version of the monthly pass, it's like about $200, right? So you should be fine in that sense. You should be able to get the full value there. And 5% cashback on groceries means up to $500 spent per month, which I don't think many people, unless you have a huge family, spend a lot more than that. Maybe you just spend a little bit more than that. But again, I think that should be fine as well. at least for most people. 3% back on gas. It would have been nice if this was 4 as well, because then it really would have been able to compete with something like a Simplii Cash Preferred. 3% back on gas. Again, if you're someone who doesn't maybe drive or something like that, maybe then that's fine. That doesn't matter to you. But for others, I would have liked to see this be 4%. 2% back on recurring payments is actually all right for a no-fee card, but for a paid card, again, it would have been nice if this was a little bit higher, like a 2.5, 3. That would have been really nice, but it is what it is. This is really the biggest issue with this card, though, is 1% cashback on all other purchases. Again, the Amex Simplii Cash Preferred card gets you 2% back on all other purchases. So only 1% is a little low. It would have been nice. If this was 2, then it really could have compared like very closely to the Simplii Cash Preferred card. But for those 2 reasons, for the fact that this card gets you the mobile device insurance, but the BMO card doesn't get you that, and also the fact that you get 2% back on everything with the Amex Simplii Cash Preferred, and this card doesn't get you 2%, I'm gonna put it in B, right? So it seems head and shoulders below Amex Simplii Cash Preferred, even though they have the same annual fee. So very unfortunate. I think there are a couple of improvements that can be made to this card to make it a very good card. It could be right up here with the no fee version, but as is, it's not gonna quite cut it for me. It's still in the higher echelons of B, like it's definitely better than some of these other cards, but I would prefer both the Simplii Cash versions to this card, and yeah, for that reason, it's going to be. Then we have the Air Miles BMO cards. So these are not as great because Air Miles, again, as a whole program, is not necessarily the best rewards program. Each point is worth quite a bit more, but the points are a lot harder to get. So let's go start with the points first. Here you can see that each Air Mile point, when you redeem it towards travel, is worth about 18 cents per point, which again, I know they all have to be confusing, don't they? They can't all just be, why can't each point just be worth 1 cent or 2 cents? Why does one have to be 0.67 cents, another one has to be 18 cents? It's really weird, but it is what it is. So here, let's first take a look at the points that you get with these cards. So you get 3 miles or 3 mile points per $25 spent at the Air Miles partners. And if you're wondering what the Air Miles partners are, let me show you that as well. So here are some of the bigger Air Miles partners across Canada. So here, of course, we got Shell. We got a couple that I kind of recognize. There's PharmaSafe, but most of them I'm not that familiar with. I don't know if these are places where you usually spend a lot of money. If it is, then maybe you can look at cards like this. But I think for most people, I don't think these are necessarily the places they go to every week or anything like that, so I don't really know about these partners. But if you do spend money at those partners, you get 3 miles per $25. So quick maths, what is 3 times 18? 54, right? So 54 points per $25 spent at participating, so that's about 2% value back. Here we get 2 miles per $25 spent on grocery purchases, so that's about like 1.5% value back, because like 2 times 18 is 36, maybe a little bit less than 1.5, or actually exactly 1.5. 1.5% value back on groceries, and then we got 1 mile per $25 spent on everything else, which is less than 1% value back. Again, this is an issue. Like we want to see at least on the no fee cards, we want to see at least 1% back on everything else, because remember, Simplii Cash, the no fee version, gets you 1.25% back on everything else, and then on the paid cards, we want to see at least 2% back on everything else, because remember, the Simplii Cash Preferred gets you 2% back on everything else. So this one is already pretty bad. This one is pretty bad as well, because again, remember, the BMO Cashback Mastercard gets you 3% back on groceries and has no annual fees, so not that great. And this one, again, the partners don't exactly look that enticing to me, and it's not even like they give you a lot of points or a lot of value back. So this card is just not a good card. Here, we get a little bit more features. So we have the Airport Lounge Dragon Pass, but the pass only. So there's no complimentary visits. You still have to pay for every time you go to an Airport Lounge, which is not great. There's some status and stuff, but again, nothing crazy. It does cost you $120. The first year is waived, but after that, it's $120 every year. And of course, you can't even you can't even qualify for this card if you don't have a minimum personal income of 80,000 or a minimum household income of 150,000, which very rich for a card that's not all that great, but that's okay. So 3 miles, it's basically double, right? So with the paid version, it's double everything because you get the same number of points, but instead of 20 per $25 spent, it's per $12 spent. So basically double of the previous card. So you get about like 1.5 points or something like that. 1.5, I should say, value back or something like that on all other purchases. You get about 3% value back on grocery, liquor, wholesale, stuff like that, which for a paid card, again, not that great. You get that with a free card with BMO, right? So we have the BMO Cashback Mastercard that gets you 3% back on groceries, no fee. And here again with the partners, don't really love the partners, and it's not that much. It's what, 4% back, 4% value back, 5% value back, something like that. For a paid card, and again for partners as bad as those, I don't really think that's worth it. Both these cards, not that great. Honestly, they might just end up in D. I do prefer the Eclipse cards slightly to them, so I'm gonna put them in D for now, but we'll see what happens later. If there's too many cards in D, we might move them up to C, because they're not the worst of the worst either, but they are pretty bad. So I'll put them in D for now. And last but not least, for BMO, we have the BMO Ascend World Elite Mastercard, and this one again has an annual fee of $150. It does get you a number of the insurances that you need, but again, we don't have the mobile device insurance here. We don't have there is trip cancellation, to be fair, so that's nice to see for a little bit of a cheaper card, but yeah, the mobile device insurance is the big one that's missing here. But there is a Dragon Pass with 4 complimentary visits, which for this lower price is actually not that bad, right? So we had the Gold card for $250. They do give $100 back in travel credit, so maybe you could look at them as similar fees. But the Gold card for $250 was giving you 4 passes a year to the Plaza Premium Lounges. So comparatively, it's actually not that bad, right? So Dragon Pass is slightly different, but still 4 complimentary visits for a card this cheap is not bad. And of course, Dragon Pass doesn't get you access everywhere. It's not the most extensive airport lounge network, but for $150 a year, you're not expecting that, right? Like if you want that kind of access and you travel that much or you go to so many different places, then you should be getting the Platinum card and not worry about anything else, right? So if you are like looking for something a little bit cheaper that gets you like some airport lounges in some places, this is actually not bad. This is actually all right so far. So we want to take a look at, there is of course a minimum personal income requirement or household income requirement. So make sure you adhere to those if you want to get this card. So this card is probably not for everyone. But again, we take a look at the points. Again, the points are BMO points. So again, about 0.67 cents per point is the worth. But you get 5 points per dollar spent on travel, which is actually not bad. So 5 times 0.67, that's about 3.3. We got 3 points per dollar spent on dining, recurring bill payments, and entertainment. So again, not that great, because remember, the points are 0.67, so 3 points is about 2% value back. Like again, there's a free card that gets you 4% back on dining, right? Not that great. And 1 point on everything else. So again, not great, because that's less than 1% value back. So this card is a bit of a mixed bag, right? The points are not great. The coverages, there's some good coverage, like trip cancellation. That's usually something you see on more premium cards. There's no mobile device insurance though, so that's a bit rough. But you do have some airport lounge access for a good price. That's kind of nice. So overall, yeah, I don't really know what to make of this card. This card probably is like somewhere in B or something. You know what? I'm going to put it right next to Gold, right? Because it's very similar. I will put it slightly ahead of Gold because it does cost a little bit less. But yeah, they're actually very similar. They're both very weird cards that I don't really know who they are for. But I guess if you just want a cheap card that gets you some airport lounge access, but you don't want to spend the big bucks to get like the all-inclusive or get the most extensive network, then maybe you can look at these 2 cards. But I think for most people, you know what you want. You either want the Platinum or you don't want all that stuff. Next up, we get into the CIBC cards, and first have the CIBC Aeroplan card, and this one I will put it at the top of B for now, or maybe like slightly below the Simplii Cash, the no fee version, because this is the only no fee Aeroplan card that you can get in Canada. So that's actually pretty nice right off the bat. And of course, with this card, you get 1 Aeroplan point per dollar spent on gas, EV charging, groceries, Air Canada, and stuff like that. And you get 1 point per $1.50 spent on everything else. Now, this part I don't love. I would have loved it if it was just 1 Aeroplan point on everything. That would have been a lot better and would have been similar to something like a green card. But again, given that you're doing it with an Aeroplan card, it's already getting you Aeroplan points. It would have been nice. And maybe it would have, if they would have given you a little bit more on Air Canada, that would have been a really good card. I would have really liked that. But as it stands, you know, on second thoughts, I might have to put it actually slightly below the green card because, yeah, this part is not great. The green card, the Amex green card, gets you 1 Amex point on everything, right? And again, remember, you can transfer those points to Aeroplan points as well, and as well as other travel partners. So, and again, the green card is no fees, right? So it's great that this is a no fee Aeroplan card, but again, given the fact that you can just transfer the points over, it's not that the best, so I might just have to put it slightly below the green card actually. But I do like that it's the only Aeroplan card with no fees, and if you are really looking for an Aeroplan card, this is the one to get to if you don't want to pay any money for it. But some of the other CIBC cards are not that great. Now we have the CIBC Aventura Visa card. This is the card that I actually got. This was the first credit card I ever had. This is the card I got when I was a student. I got the student version of the card, and then I transferred it over to the regular version. And it's not great. It's not great, you guys. I only got this because, again, I had to get a student card. For student cards, by the way, just on a tangent, the CIBC Aeroplan Visa card is actually a very good student card. So among the student cards, the BMO Cashback Mastercard has a student version that's very good. And other than that, I'd say the Aeroplan card, the student version, is a very good student card. So if you are a student, it would basically be, for students only, it would be this card in S and this card in A probably, right? So those are the best student cards out there. Some of these other student cards are not so great, like the CIBC Aventura Visa card was a student card that I got, and then there's a regular version as well. Not great. Really, really poor, really poor. You get 1 Aventura point, I should say, not Aeroplan point. Aventura points, it does say they're worth about 1 cent per point when you redeem towards travel. In my experience, it might even be worth less. So I ended up actually using all the points that I got from my Aventura Visa card for like the first couple of years of owning credit cards, just on statement credits for like very low return rate, because I was like, you know what, screw it. the travel options were really bad. So I was like, it's fine. I don't want to spend it. I'm sure they have improved it over the years, because there's no way it could have got worse than what it was. But yeah, I have a very special love-hate relationship with this card, because it has a nice place in my heart for being the first card I ever had. But I feel like I got scammed for the first couple of years of my life, to be honest with you. I feel like if I had, for example, the Aeroplan Visa card, it would have been much better than the Aventura Visa card. So if you are a CIBC guy, I would definitely go with the Aeroplan card over the Aventura card, because the Aventura card is pretty bad. So I'm not even going to go into the details. I'm just going to go over here, take that card, drop it down in D, and never look back, to be honest with you. But now let's take a look at the more premium versions of the CIBC card. So we got the CIBC Aeroplan Visa Infinite card and the CIBC Aeroplan Visa Infinite Privilege card. Now, the Infinite card costs $140 a year to own. The Infinite Privilege card costs $600 a year to own. But they do offer some good features, so they have a lot of good coverages. They both do have mobile device insurance. The Infinite card gets you mobile device insurance up to $1,000, whereas the Infinite Privilege card gets you coverage up to $1,500, which is very nice, because some of the more premium cards do offer up to $1,500. For example, the Platinum Business card offers $1,500 in coverage for mobile devices. So it's very good to see that. Pretty much all the coverages are also double with the Infinite Privilege card, like this lost or stolen baggage delay. You can see 500 here, 1,000 there. It's very good to see this comparison side by side. Kind of gives you an idea of what you're getting for that extra, what is it, 400 somewhat dollars, 460 more dollars that you're spending on getting the Infinite Privilege card. And of course, they're very extensive. Some of the like emergency out of province medical insurance. This one's 15 days, this one's 31 days, which is actually very good. This is not something you even see on the premium cards that frequently. Usually it's just the 15 days, but here we got 31 days, which is pretty nice. Purchase protection is also double. Here we have 90 days, which is the standard for premium cards, and even some no-fee cards have this, but here we have 180 days, which is, again, very nice. Extended warranty is double. So the coverages are very good with the Infinite Privilege card. The big feature of the Infinite Privilege card is that you get airport lounge access to Maple Leaf lounges and also Air Canada cafes. It is only 6 complimentary visits per year, but to be fair, like, I don't think most people use it that much more. Like, unless you travel a lot and you frequently have layovers and stuff like that, then maybe you would run out of complimentary visits. So honestly, I would have preferred if it was a little bit more, especially since you're paying $600. If it was like 10, I think that would have been fine. But with 6, you probably will still be fine. But I'm thinking, like, if you travel, let's say 3 times a year, and you have, you know, because you go and you come back, right? So you have a couple layovers in there. It's already, you're like, even without layovers, you're already done, right? Because before you leave and before you come back, that's twice per travel. If you travel 3 times a year, and then let's say you have 1 or 2 layovers somewhere in there, then you start running out of complimentary visits. So I would have preferred if it was a little bit more, like 10, I think would have been fine, because I really do like some of the coverages that they're giving and some of the extended amounts. But the 6 does feel a little less. Again, this is a $600 card, so you really want to see a lot of good value for the money that you're paying. So I would have preferred that a little bit. But to be fair, you do have priority check-in, priority boarding, priority baggage handling for, you know, Air Canada flights or flights supported by Aeroplan, which is pretty nice. You do have a companion voucher, which is pretty nice. So this is an annual companion pass from $100 up to $600 when you spend at least $25,000 on your card. So it does require you to spend quite a bit on your card, but if you spend that money anyways in like a regular year, so that's a little bit over $2,000 per month, then yeah, you would get that anyways. But do people really spend that much? I guess for big families maybe, or if you just spend a lot, or if you have a spending problem, I guess. So I guess if you are that type of person, you would know who you are. That would be a good voucher to get, so you can get, you know, an extra ticket for basically free, up to $600, which is pretty nice. That's the fee that you're paying for the card. There is also a free first check bag for both of these cards, which is very nice. That's a very good value for Air Canada flights, because again, imagine if you travel, let's say, again, 3 times a year or something like that, right? So each time you travel, you're going there and you're coming back. So that's 6 times you come and go if you travel 3 times a year. Or if you do, let's say, twice a year, that's 4 times you come and going and coming back. Each time that's like $30, $40 that you're saving by having this feature, right? So particularly on the Visa Infinite card, which is a lot cheaper to own, that's a very, very nice feature to have. So both these cards definitely have their upsides, but I would have preferred them to either, like for example with the Infinite Privilege card, either to offer unlimited access to Maple Leaf lounges, or for both of them to give you more points, because the points aren't necessarily the highest. Now you get 1.5 points per dollar spent on gas, EV charging, groceries, and Air Canada with the Infinite card, and 1 Aeroplan point on money spent on everything else. Not the highest, especially when you compare it to stuff like, again, remember, the Infinite card is around the same price as the Cobalt card, which gets you 5 points. And remember, you can turn those points into Aeroplan points if you want. 5 points on dining, on groceries, on all that stuff, right? So it's a little bit low. I would have preferred a little bit higher here. Like if they were offering, let's say, 3 Aeroplan points per dollar spent on gas, EV charging, groceries, stuff like that, then that's more like it, right? We're getting a little bit better. But 1.5 seems really low here, especially when you're competing with something like the Cobalt card. And here for the Infinite Privilege card, you get 2 Aeroplan points per dollar spent on Air Canada, up for the first $100,000 of transactions. So I guess if you spend more, you will be getting that. I don't think that's a problem for a lot of people though. 1.5 Aeroplan points per dollar spent on gas, groceries, travel, and dining And again, for the first $100,000 a year, they're really targeting the rich guys with these cards, aren't they? And then 1.25 Aeroplan points per dollar spent on other purchases. So I do like this one, that they don't just give you 1 point per dollar spent on everything else, unlike, you know, stuff like the Cobalt card or the Platinum card that just give you 1 point on everything else. I do like that it's a little bit higher, but I do think these ones are a little bit low, and that would have been fine if, similar to the Platinum card, they were offering so many amazing features for travel, like for example, unlimited access to airport lounges. But again, remember, it's only 6 complimentary visits. If you only travel domestically, and if you let's say hate layovers, so you almost never get a ticket with a layover, then that will be fine. But if not, again, it's not as good. I would have liked to either see more points being given or a better lounge access being given to you. I do like the coverages for this card, but yeah, some of the features are a little bit lacking. So overall, again, they're kind of a mixed bag. I will put them both in B, maybe slightly below the Simply Cash, the no fee version, because they do have a substantial fee. I do like the coverages that they give, but again, the points are not there, and with the premium version, the airport lounge access needed to be just a little bit more. Maybe if they give you some access to like Plaza Premium or Dragon Pass or something alongside the Maple Leaf Lounge access, then that would have been a lot better, right? Because you could have managed your 6 passes that you have for Maple Leaf, and also you get some of those other ones, so it would have been a lot better. And you would have also had access to other networks that are not just limited to just Canada and a couple of US cities and maybe like 1 or 2 other places. But yeah, as is, they're not bad. They're definitely worth a look for some people, especially if you're someone who just has to get a CIBC card. Let's say you have a CIBC, you do everything with CIBC, your investments are with CIBC, your banking is with CIBC, and you just want to get a credit card with CIBC to keep it all in-house, then I would definitely look at particularly the Infinite card. Maybe I should put it slightly higher, but I do like the coverages that the more premium version gives you. So I do go back and forth between these two. Maybe I'll put this one slightly higher because I think more people can easily afford it. But this one also definitely has its merits. I just wish they gave you a little bit more with the airport lounges or stuff like that. So overall, not bad, but I wouldn't put it in the highest of highest tiers need either, at least not for now, unless they want to improve it going forward, either with the points or with the features. Now we're going to take a look at the Aventura cards. So as I mentioned earlier, the Aventura points are a lot worse than the Aeroplan points. So right off the bat, I'm not the biggest fan of these cards, but let's take a quick look at them. So we have the CIBC Aventura Gold Visa card and the CIBC Aventura Visa Infinite card. So they're both $140 a year to own. So what's really the difference? The Visa Infinite card does get you some more coverages. Again, we got the emergency medical over 65, and we have trip cancellation and trip interruption. So that's nice to have. Again, both of these for a card that's a little bit on the cheaper side. They're actually very good to have. But here with the gold card, we don't have those. So not the best, but that's okay. We can take a look at the points that they offer. Here we have 2 points per dollar spent on travel through CIBC Reward Center. We got 1.5 points per dollar spent on gas, EV, grocery stores, and drugstores on both of them. And again, 1 point per dollar spent on all other purchases. Now, they both do also get you some airport lounge access with the Dragon Pass. So that is 4 free complimentary visits for both of them. And you also get the Nexus program rebate. So if you sign up for the Nexus program, which is the program, for going from Canada to US. It makes the screening a lot easier, and you just basically have to do this application once every 4 years. And it does cost a little bit less than $100, so this should cover the application fee. And if you want to do that so that you can travel a lot easier, let's say if you're a frequent traveler, it could be a good investment, right? And you get that application fee back with these cards, and also with a lot of the Amex cards and stuff like that. So it's a good idea to have. But really what the difference between these two cards is, because you're wondering, hey, I mean, they both cost the same. Why is one offering more features than the other? What's the difference here? The difference is in your minimum income requirement, basically, right? If you are going for the Aventura Gold Visa card, all you need is, a minimum household income of $15,000, which I think most people should have easily. Whereas for this card, it's a little bit more. It's minimum personal income of $60,000, minimum household income of $100,000. So if you do have these minimum personal incomes or household income, then the gold Visa card is like, you should never even look at this card, right? Because this is literally the same card with more features. But is this card worth it, right? Or if you don't have those incomes, is this card worth it? Again, the points are very low. Remember, these are Aventura points. These are worth, I'm fairly confident they're worth less than 1 cent per point towards travel. Or if they are 1 cent per point like this website claims, still it's not the highest. It's not like you can transfer to Aeroplan or Flying Blue Miles or other programs where you can take advantage of very good deals. And yeah, again, it's only 1.5 point per dollar spent on gas, EV, grocery. That's 1.5% value back. Not that great. It's okay. It's good that they at least give you 1% value back on everything else. That's nice to see, but not the best, especially for a card where you're paying a good amount of points. Again, remember, the Cobalt card gets you 1 Amex point, which you can transfer to other partners and get more value from. Overall, they're nowhere near as bad as the no-fee version, which is just horrible, but I would probably put them somewhere in C, with this one, of course, being slightly higher. I would put this one probably around here, something like that, and maybe this one a little bit lower. I'm trying to think if this goes above or below the BMO cards. Probably slightly below the BMO cards. I'll probably put it here for now, and we'll see if we can readjust later. And of course, last but not least, we have the CIBC Aventura Visa Infinite Privilege card, and this is the $500 version of the card, and it does basically have a lot more coverage, not on every single one of these items, but on some of them. Like for example, lost or stolen baggage, instead of 500, we're getting 1,000. Instead of, let's say, $1,000 on mobile device insurance, we're getting 1,500. Again, you want to see that on the more premium cards. It's nice to see it here. Again, 2 years extended warranty instead of 1 year, 180 days purchase protection instead of 90 days, 31 days emergency out of province medical insurance instead of 15 days. So those are very nice to see. And trip interruption, look at this. $5,000 for trip interruption, $2,500 on trip cancellation. That's pretty nice. And again, it's a little bit cheaper than the Infinite Privilege Aeroplan card, which was $600. This one's only $500, which does make sense because the Aeroplan points are a lot better, and that one was getting you access to all the Maple Leaf lounges, right? Whereas this one, it doesn't have the same lounge access. It has the Dragon Pass, which does get you 6 free complimentary visits to Dragon Pass locations. I really should make a separate video comparing these different airport lounge programs, but yeah, basically Dragon Pass is also not that great. It's not super reliable. It's not at every airport that you go to. I would probably say Maple Leaf is worth a little bit more, especially if you travel a lot domestically. If you go internationally, it's a bit of a toss-up, depends where you're going. So it's not the worst, I guess, especially that you're getting it only for $500. This one is really nice to see. $200 travel credit to use at CIBC Reward Center. That's actually pretty nice, right? So I've never used a CIBC Reward Center, so I don't know if they're like what kind of a deal you're getting there. I know that sometimes these reward centers actually do get good deals. Like for example, I do use Amex Travel a lot because, I use my Platinum Card to usually purchase travel and stuff like that, purchase flights or hotels or whatever. And what I found is that some of the time, not every time, of course, but some of the time when you compare it to stuff like Expedia or Booking.com and stuff like that, sometimes you do get actually a slightly better deal with those kinds of places, right? So it's a good one to have and just compare and contrast, right? So if you want to book a flight or book a hotel or something and you have this credit, then you can take a look. Like if you get basically the same deal here as you do with Expedia or Booking.com, then you might as well use this one here and get $200 off. If you get slightly lower prices with this, then it's even better, right? So it's definitely a good credit to have. It would have been nice if you could just use it anywhere, or if you could have used it with the Amex Travel, because Amex Travel is probably the best travel program with one of these financial institutions or credit cards or whatever. I would say it's probably the best one, at least to my knowledge. I haven't used every single one of them, to be fair, so take that with a pinch of salt. But I really do like Amex Travel as a program because, again, sometimes I do get better deals than Expedia and Booking.com and stuff like that. But again, you could just compare and contrast, right? So anytime you're booking a flight or a hotel, just compare, see what the prices are on both or all these different environments, and just pick the best one, right? Pick the best deal. So $500, not that bad. There is quite a bit of minimum income requirement. There's the minimum personal income of $150,000 and minimum household income of $200,000. So that's pretty high. So that's not a lot of people that can afford this card. You don't get that many points, unfortunately. Again, 3 points per dollar spent on travel purchased through CIBC Reward Center, 2 points per dollar spent on dining, entertainment, gas, transportation, and groceries. And again, these are Aventura points, it's not even Aeroplan points. So let's say they're worth about a cent. So that's about 2% value back on a $500 card. Remember, like the Cobalt card is a $150 card, and that one gets you 5 Amex points. It's not even CIBC Aventura points. Overall, I'm a bit torn on this card. There are some good features here, and of course it's nice that they're giving you $200 back. If you can use this travel credit correctly, that would bring the out-of-pocket cost for this card down to $300, which would be a much better deal in that scenario. So again, it probably goes somewhere in B or C. I'm thinking probably just C, right around this one. I'll put it slightly ahead because even though it's not for everyone, if you can use that $200 annual travel credit correctly, that does bring the cost down dramatically, right? Because you spent $500, but if you get that $200 back, now you've only spent $300 out of pocket, and you get so many better coverages than the other version. So it's a tough one. It's definitely not for everyone, but I can see some people using it and getting a lot of value from it if they use it correctly. So I'll just put it right there. And of course, now we get into the CIBC Costco Mastercard, which is a very middling card. I'll put it like at the end of B for now. Basically, it's a Mastercard that you can use at Costco, and it gets you 1% cash back at Costco, which, I mean, it's whatever. The only thing about Costco is that you can only use Mastercards there. So if you have a Visa card or an Amex card, you're actually not allowed to use them at Costco. You're only allowed to use Mastercard. But it is free to own. That's a good thing about it, right? If this had a fee, it would be like way, way down because it gives you very little cash back. It does give you 2% cash back at gas stations and 3% cash back at Costco gas stations, but just in general, it doesn't get you that much cash back, and it's not that great. It doesn't have a lot of features, but given the fact that it's free to own, I think it's probably fine. You can, if you already have a Costco membership and you already have like good cards, whether you have the Cobalt or the Simplii Cash Preferred, or you have some of these CIBC Aeroplan cards or something like that, maybe the BMO Cashback Mastercard, what have you, you can use all of that. And by the way, just to keep in mind, you can't use this one, or you can use it. I should rephrase that. You can't get 3% back at Costco because Costco doesn't count as a grocery store. It counts as like a department store or discount store, whatever. It's very technical, but Costco specifically, and also Walmart, even though Walmart is a bit weird, they don't count as grocery stores. Now, I've heard that some Walmart stores might count as grocery store. It gets really complicated, but Costco for sure, I can tell you, it does not count as a grocery store. So even though this card gets you 3% back on grocery stores, it doesn't get you 3% back at Costco specifically. Okay, so this card, in that scenario, it's actually not that bad to have it. And it is free to own. If you already have other good cards and you just want another card that you just use at Costco, then you could look at this card, but you don't really have to get it. I mean, you could just use your debit card, or you could just use cash at Costco, or you can just use another MasterCard and not get that much cash back. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. But I guess if you're a huge Costco enthusiast, and again, given that it's free to own, you might as well. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it. It's free to own. It's fine, whatever. Even if you don't use it, you're not paying any fees or anything for it. Next up, we get into the CIBC Dividend Cards, and we have first the CIBC Dividend Visa Card and also the Dividend Platinum Card, and we have them right here. So the Dividend Card has no fee, whereas the Platinum Dividend Card or Dividend Platinum Card has a $100 annual fee. Now, we'll take a look at the differences. Now, first of all, they don't have too many coverages, unlike a lot of the other cards that we've seen so far. But again, the good thing is that the dividend card has no annual fee. And as far as no fee credit cards go for CIBC, this is by far the best one. It's much better than the Aventura no fee card. The Aeroplan one is good in terms of giving you Aeroplan points, but this one is just better because it gives you cashback, and it's an all right amount of cashback. Now, there are other no fee cards that might give you a little bit better. We'll talk about those in a second, but this one's actually a pretty solid choice if you like have CIBC banking set up and everything, and you just want a CIBC credit card. This one's actually not that bad. So we got, let's take a look at the cashbacks. We got 2% cashback on groceries, and we got 1% cashback on gas, EV, transportation, dining, and recurring payments. And of course, this is just for the first $80,000 of transactions a year, and first $20,000 per each category. 2% back on groceries is good. It's not great because remember, the BMO cashback Mastercard gets you 3% back on groceries. And this one, it does get you 1% cashback on all else, which is nice. Not every card has that, which is pretty good to have. But what do you get with the CIBC Dividend Platinum Visa card? You get 3% cashback on gas and groceries, which is getting close to the Amex Simply Cash Preferred card, but not quite. Remember, they're very similar fees. That one gets you 4% back on gas and groceries. So it's a little bit lacking there, but 2% cashback on transportation, dining, recurring bills, and 1% cashback on everything else. Now, again, the main issue with this card, the Platinum Visa card, is the fact that it's a very similar fee to the Amex Simply Cash Preferred, and the Amex Simply Cash Preferred gets you more on gas and groceries and also gets you more on everything else, right? So when you look at it that way, I guess it's the same on transportation, dining, and recurring bills, but for everything else, it's much more. It's not a bad card. It's definitely all right if you're looking to only get CIBC cards for some reason. It's okay. It's not the biggest upgrade on the Dividend Visa card. I do prefer this one because I do feel that for the $100 fee, you want to see at least a little bit more here. Like maybe if this was at least like 4% back on gas and groceries, similar to the Simply Cash Preferred. And that's a jump that you see in those cards, right? The free version gets you 2% back on gas and groceries, whereas the paid version gets you 4% back. So here, if it was a similar jump from 2 to 4, that would have made a lot more sense. This is a little lacking. So as is, I do like the Dividend Visa card better, but neither of them are that great. So I'm going to put the Dividend Visa card probably right around here, maybe slightly ahead of the Costco card. They're both free to own, but this one at least gets you some okay cashback. Whereas the Platinum Dividend card is going to go down here. I'm going to put it above the Aventura cards. As I mentioned, I'm not the biggest fan of the Aventura point system. At least with this one, you're getting straight cashback. So that's nice to see. Last but not least, we have the CIBC Dividend Visa Infinite card. And this one costs you $120 a year. So this exact same as a Simply Cash Preferred. So slightly higher than this one, but it does give you a number of coverages. So for example, you get the mobile device insurance. That's very nice to see. You get the emergency out of province medical insurance, but it's only for 10 days, whereas something like a Simply Cash Preferred gets you for 15 days. So a little bit of a difference there, but at least you have something here. That's nice to see. But when it comes to the cashbacks, this is the big one, right? So it goes from 3% to 4%. So this makes a lot more sense, right? So if you're looking to choose between these two, of course, you would want to choose the Dividend Visa card, even though it does cost you $20 more, but I just want to show this. So the only reason why you may not be able to is because for the Dividend Visa Infinite card, there is a minimum personal income requirement, whereas for the Platinum Visa card, there's just a minimum household income of $15,000, which I think pretty much everyone should be able to qualify for very easily, with very few exceptions. And for the Dividend Visa Infinite card, again, it should be probably fine for most people, but there's definitely a lot more people who might have trouble fitting into these categories. Minimum personal income of $60,000, minimum household income of $100,000, either or, right? It doesn't have to be both. So overall, looking at them, and by the way, I'm not going over welcome bonuses too much in this video, and that's because I'm focusing more on what you can get with these cards in long term. That's what I'm using for the rankings. And also, a lot of these welcome bonuses don't change that much from time to time. If there's a special on any of these welcome bonuses, I'll make sure to cover that. Or if there's any additional rebate that you can get from a website like this one or other places, or from my own referral links and stuff like that, then I'll make sure to talk about that. But in other cases, if it's just a standard welcome bonus, I'm not going to delve too deep into those. So just so you guys know, because there were some comments in my old videos talking about that. So just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, so overall, this one is definitely a better option. For $20 more, you do get a lot better, but it is a bit more restrictive. So I would probably put it right here around the no fee version. I still do think that the no fee version is probably slightly better because, or maybe I would put this one slightly better, but it does need to be a full category behind the Simplii Cash Preferred for me because, and this is the main reason why. Again, you see 1% cashback on all other purchases, whereas the Simplii Cash Preferred gets you 2% back on all other purchases. And also, you just get a lot more coverages, right? So here you don't have stuff like stolen baggage or travel delay or stuff like that. Those coverages are included with the Simplii Cash Preferred. If you look at, how extensive they are. In fact, let me just bring them up so you can see. You can see right here, we got the lost or stolen baggage, we got baggage delay, we got hotel burglary insurance, we got flight delay, we got a bunch more stuff, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, the emergency medical out-of-province insurance is doesn't say it here, but it's 15 days instead of the 10 days that we got with this card. And of course, the only other difference that is in favor of the Dividend Visa card is the travel accident is actually higher. It's about 5 times more. But on the other hand, the car rental damage and theft is lower. So overall, I do like the Simplii Cash Preferred card quite a bit better because you get more cash back on all the other categories, and also you get more coverages as well. So overall, I would just have to put this one a full category higher than the CIBC Dividend, the Visa Infinite card. Now, moving on from the CIBC cards and delving right into Desjardins. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, by the way. This is a very obscure bank, but there were some comments asking me to cover this, so I'm going to cover them, but I'm going to go through them very fast because I don't think these cards are that great for most people. But we'll cover them very, very quickly. So we got the Desjardins Cashback Mastercard and the Desjardins Cashback Visa. So they're both free to own, but there's both versions, right? There's the Mastercard and the Visa version. And as you can see, they do have some decent coverage, especially for no fee cards. That's pretty nice to see. So that's probably the biggest strength that I would say these have. That said, some of these are very limited. Like, for example, emergency out-of-province medical insurance is only for 3 days. Most people, when they travel for quite a bit more than 3 days, right? Probably like 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So the 15-day period is actually very good because it does cover a lot of the travels. Like, you don't really all that frequently travel for more than 2 weeks, but 3 days is cutting it very short. So I don't love that, but it's still nice to see for no fee cards to have so many coverages. It's still nice to see. And of course, this is the big kicker though. Minimum personal income requirement of 80,000 for both of them, or minimum household income of 150,000. Now that cuts off a lot of people right there, so it's not great. But if you are on those levels, and honestly, if you are earning 80,000 or 150,000 as a household or more, you have enough income to be able to at least get a little bit of a more premium card. Like, I'm not saying go out there and get the Platinum Card if you don't like travel a lot or anything like that, but at least the Amex Simplii Cash Preferred or the Amex Cobalt or a couple other cards that we're going to go over in a second that cost you about $100, $150, something like that. Those you can definitely afford, and a lot of those give you all these coverages or better, specifically with like the length of some of these, and also get you a ton of cash back and a ton of features like that, right? So in that sense, I don't love this restriction. If this was a little bit lower, like 50, 60,000, at least that would have been better. But remember, the average income in Canada is like around like 50, 60,000. So when you put it at 80,000, that cuts off a lot of people, right? Like, it might seem like a small difference going from 60,000 to 80,000. But actually, when you look at the demographic and the income spread among the Canadians, it's actually covering a lot less people compared to 50 or 60,000, something like that. So I do think that's a little bit much. I don't love that. 2% cash back on restaurants, entertainment, transit, and pre-authorized purchases. It's not bad, but specifically for restaurants, again, like I mentioned, we're going to get to it. I know we haven't got to it because we're going in alphabetical order with the cards, but there is a credit card that we're going to get to that has no annual fee that gets you 4% cash back at restaurants, bars, and coffee shops. So 2% back on restaurants doesn't really impress me all that much. Entertainment, I believe that's like, what is it, movie theaters or something. Transit, I mean, it's all right, I guess. Pre-authorized purchases could be good, but again, not that great, especially given the fact that it's only 0.5% cashback on all other purchases. Not that great. So overall, the best thing about this card is that it does get you a lot of insurances, even though some of them are very short. But other than that, I'm not a big fan of either card. So we're just going to go and dump them both at the end of C or at the beginning of D. I'll probably put it at the end of C. I wouldn't put it at the beginning of D because, again, at least you do have those coverages, which are pretty nice for a no-fee card. So I'll put them both at the end of C. Or maybe we could move them to the middle somewhere. Actually, I'll just leave them B. That's fine. Next up, we got the Desjardins Bonus Visa and also Desjardins Cashback World Elite Mastercard. So let's take a look at these. So the Bonus Visa is the no-fee version. Another no-fee, there's a lot of no-fee cards that they have here. This one does get you, again, a lot of those same coverages. But again, some of these periods are very, very short, only 3 days. But let's take a look at we talked about annual fees. They still have the same income requirements. And again, the cashback is the exact same. So you know what? I'm just going to put this one right alongside the other ones as well. So we don't spend too much time going over a lot of these cards. So this is the bonus. Bonus goes right there as well. But then the Desjardins Cashback World Elite MasterCard, it does cost you $100 a year, which again is similar to something like an Amex Simpli Cash Preferred. It does get you a lot of the same coverages, but again, this is the issue. Some of these are still very, very limited, like lost or stolen baggage for trips up to 3 days. Really? It's not enough. Or emergency out of province medical insurance for up to 3 days. Again, not enough. Trip cancellation up to 3 days. So they need to do better with some of these coverages. I appreciate that they have them, but the length are just too short. But we do get 4% cashback on groceries with this card, 3% cashback on restaurants, 3% back on entertainment and alternative transportation. So I'm guessing that's just transit, and 1% cashback on everything else. So it's good that you have at least 1% back on everything else. But again, a Simplii Cash Preferred card, very similar fee, gets you 2% back on everything else. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but it's true. I mean, a lot of these cards, they could afford to give a little bit more cash back on all other purchases. And the truth of the matter is that most of your spending is probably going to be either you already know what specific category it is, like if you spend a lot at restaurants, and you already know that, and you can just go for that kind of a card. But other than those kinds of scenarios, most of the time your spendings are on categories that don't really fit into like any of these big categories. Like if you, again, hire a contractor or something like that, or if you, I don't know, buy a laptop or something like that, right? That doesn't really fit into any like groceries or restaurants or any of that. Doesn't fit into gas, none of that, right? So a lot of your big purchases are considered other types of purchases. So you do want to have a higher baseline than that. And 1% is at least better than some of those other cards that are horrible with the other, like some of these no fee cards from Desjardins or wherever else, which get you 0.5%. That's just crazy. But you could do more. I think 2% for a $100 card. I think 2% just has to be there because, again, Simplii Cash Preferred is getting you that. 4% back in groceries. It's okay, but again, it's only like, remember the BMO Mastercard, the paid version gets you 5% back on groceries. So if you really care about groceries and how much cash back you get on those, maybe you look at the BMO cards instead, right? So 3% back on restaurants. I said this many times. There is other no fee cards that get you 4% back on restaurants. So there's no excuse for them not to at least get to 4%. 3% back on entertainment and transit. It's not that great. So overall, I don't love this card either. It does have the Airport Lounge Dragon Pass, but again, it's pass only. So I don't believe it has complimentary visits off the top of my head. So that's not great. Overall, not a great card. It's going to go right there with pretty much all the other Desjardins cards. Maybe slightly higher than those ones, but still not the best. Now we get into their Odyssey Visa cards. Now this, I believe they have the wrong picture here, but this should be the Desjardins Odyssey Gold Visa, which we can see right here. I believe it's this one, right? Yeah, that's the Gold Visa card. So let's take a look at these, right? So we got the Gold Visa card, we got the Odyssey Visa Infinite Privilege card, right? So the Gold Visa card costs about $110 a year. The Visa Infinite Privilege costs about $400 a year. They do have a lot of coverages. Of course, the more premium version has a bigger amount of coverage for a lot of these categories. I want to take a look at the emergency medical. There we go. That's much more like it. 60 days is much more like it, not just 3 days. So I like to see that. And wow, look at this. Trip interruption has no limit. So that's pretty good. But let's take a look at what you get with it. So first of all, again, the minimum income requirements are very high. Specifically for this one, it's minimum $200,000 personal income or $200,000 household. Again, that's cutting off a lot of people. They're looking for elite clients only, it seems. Let's take a look at the cashback rates or the rewards rates. So we got 2% cashback on restaurants, entertainment, transit, all that stuff, and 1% back on everything else. So this one is slightly better than those no fee versions, but there is a $110 fee, so you would expect that. So overall, it's not that great. This one you're paying $400, so you really want some good cash back or at least some good features. 4% back on restaurants, entertainment, transit. Not that great. Again, there's a 4% card for no fee on restaurants. 3% back on travel and grocery. It's okay, not bad. This is a lot more like it. 1.7%, 1.75% cash back on everything else. But again, this is a $400 a year card. There is a $120 a year card that gets you 2% back on everything else. This is a $400 card that gets you 1.75. So at least it's higher than one. I'm happy about that. But still, come on, at least give us two. Like there are cheaper cards that get you two. So just not great, not great. But the one thing that you can say is that there is the benefit of this card. There is both Priority Pass and Desjardins Odyssey Pass, and they both have a number of free passes. So that's something that you can actually kind of look at. So there's some airport lounge coverage with this card. Again, it's not the best. It's not like I would say, oh, go and get this card if you want to like get a lot of airport lounge access and stuff like that. But to be fair, it actually does give you some coverage, right? And it's two different pass systems, and you get 6 free passes with this one, 12 free passes with this one. I mentioned earlier that there was another card that only got you like 4 or 5 passes, and I mentioned that, hey, like, come on, at least give us like 1 or 2 more, and or give us like two different memberships that each give us like 4 or 5 passes or something like that. So they're actually doing that here. So credit to them. So that's good to see that they're trying to give you as much coverage when it comes to airport lounges. But it's still not the best programs out there, and it is still limited. So it's better than the other ones. I don't hate this card. I would probably put it somewhere a little bit higher than the other Desjardins cards that we would look at, even though it's so much more expensive. That has such a high income requirement. And the cashbacks, some of them are okay, but again, they could be much better. But hey, at least you're getting some of these good features, so maybe that offsets that. So overall, I would put the gold Visa card probably around here with the other ones, whereas the other one I'm gonna put probably slightly above gold, I'm thinking, because remember, gold also gave you some airport lounges, but it wasn't too many, and I didn't love it. Maybe above the BMO Ascend as well. Yeah, so I'm going to put it right here. I think that's about the right place to put it. And of course, last but not least, by the way, this card shouldn't have been on here. This is a card that just doesn't have any cashback or any features. So just forget about that one. We'll put it in D. But then we have the Desjardins Odyssey World Elite, and we're going to take a look at how that one compares to the other two. So the Desjardins Odyssey World Elite costs $130 a year, so it is cheaper than the Visa Infinite Privilege. It does have a lot of these coverages, a decent amount on a lot of these actually. It's less than this, but it's still pretty good for a $130 card. It does rival like, for example, your Simplii Cash Preferred. For example, one thing you can see is that this card, the World Elite card, gets you more mobile device insurance than both, the more expensive version and also the Simplii Cash Preferred, which is also for $1,000 as well. So that's nice to see, at least. There is some airport lounge with the Desjardins Odyssey program. Again, not the most extensive program out there. If it was just between the Desjardins Odyssey or the Dragon Pass, it probably would have been better to have Dragon Pass or Priority Pass or something like that. But hey, it's something, right? And it's much cheaper, to be fair, right? So this card maybe doesn't give you the best lounges, but given that it's a third of the price of the Visa Infinite Privilege, that's fine. We can accept that, right? Because we are saving quite a bit in the annual fee. But let's take a look at what you get. So again, the minimum personal income requirements are at least more reasonable than this one. The rewards rates, so 3% back on groceries. Hey, I appreciate that they're at least giving the 3%, but remember, there's a free card that gets you 3% back on groceries, so not the best. 2% back on restaurants. Again, remember there's a free card that gets you 4% back on restaurants, entertainment, and public transit. But hey, look at this, 1.5% cash back on other purchases. Still not the same as a Simplii Cash Preferred, which is a little bit cheaper than this card and gives you 2% back. But hey, at least it's not 1%. I'll give him that. So I'll probably put this one somewhere in the B range as well. I'd say these two are actually very, very comparable in terms of quality compared to what you're paying for it, right? So for $130, I think you get enough bang for your buck to be like in a B tier. Still not like an S or A tier by any means, but there's still some value here. It's not that bad. And same with this one. So you pay a lot more, but you do actually get quite a bit more airport lounge access. There's some higher cashback rates. Are they great? No, but at least it's higher than the other one by a decent margin. So overall, it is what it is. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst either. I'll probably put it somewhere right here next to the other one. Next up, we have the MBNA cards. Now, the MBNA cards are, again, a bunch of cards that were requested on my previous video, so I'm going to include them this time as well. So we first start with the Smart Cash cards. We got the MBNA Smart Cash World Mastercard and MBNA Smart Cash Platinum Plus Mastercard. They're both very cheap to own. Like this one is completely free. The Platinum Plus one, that is. The Smart Cash World Mastercard is only $40 a year to own, so that's, again, very affordable. There are some decent coverages here. It's not the most extensive by any means, but these are very cheap cards. So the fact that there is something here is still pretty encouraging. The car rental accident, car rental damage and theft, those are very nice. Travel accident is very good, up to $1 million. Extended warranty, purchase protection, car rental, personal effects, trip interruption, that's good to see. But of course, it doesn't have some of the bigger ones like the mobile device insurance or trip cancellation or emergency out-of-province medical insurance. We don't have those really big ones, right? But to be fair, like these are very cheap cards, right? So if you want those, there are definitely more expensive cards that you can take advantage of. But yeah, for this rate, it's okay. Like we don't have to have every coverage out there, right? So again, $39 a year, $0 a year. There's no minimum income requirement for the Platinum Plus, but there is a minimum of 60,000 personal income or 100,000 household for this one. So hey, at least it's not like the Harding cards, which they ask you for 80 and 150, right? So this one's 60 and 100. It's a little bit more inclusive. Now, there's some decent welcome bonuses, 5% and stuff like that. But let's take a look at the actual cashback once you have the card. So you get 2% cashback on gas and grocery for the MBNA Smart Cash World Mastercard and 1% on everything else. The issue with this is that there is a free-to-own card called the Amex Simplii Cash card, not the preferred version, the free version. And that one gets you 2% back on gas and groceries as well, but it gets you 1.25% cash back on everything else. So it's just higher than this, right? So it's just already, and that one is free to own. This card, remember, this card actually does have, it's a small fee, but it does have that fee. And again, the coverages, it's actually very similar with this. That card also doesn't have all the coverages, but it does have some of the basic ones. So for that reason alone, this card can't rank too high. It has to be at least one category below the Amex Simplii Cash, the free version. And then this one, the Platinum Plus MasterCard, again, very similar. 2% cashback on gas and groceries, but 0.5% cashback on everything else. So the $40 that you're paying really is mostly for this one, right? So for getting 1% cashback instead of 0.5% cashback. Not the best, not great. I'm probably just going to put both in C. So they're just going to go somewhere in here. They're not super far down. I'd probably put it above Aventura. So because they're not that bad. They're okay, but it's just compared to this card, the free to own version of the Simplii Cash. It's just not a good comparison for it. And then we go into the MBNA rewards cards. We got the Platinum Plus MasterCard and also the World Elite MasterCard. The Platinum Plus is free to own, whereas the World Elite is $120 a year to own. But let's take a look at what you get. So with the World Elite, you do get a lot more coverage. So with the free to own version, you do get the mobile device insurance. That's pretty nice for a no fee card. But you don't have a lot of the other ones, right? Like all the travel coverages basically are not included here, whereas they are with the World Elite, so that's nice to see. The minimum income requirement is $80,000, $150,000 for the World Elite card, so that's more than the Hardin territory. It's a little bit higher, but the Platinum Plus doesn't have any minimum income requirements. But yeah, you look at the points that you get. And first, let's talk about how much these points are actually worth. So according to this source, they're worth about 1 cent per point. 2 points on restaurants, grocery, digital media, membership, household utility purchases, but maximum 20,000 yearly. So that would be how much spent? That would be 100,000 spent, right? So yeah, or 20,000 yearly, so that would be $1 million spent, right? Okay, I see what's happening here. So they made a mistake. I think that's $20,000 yearly spent, because over here it's 50,000 spent annually, right? So that's what I was saying. I was like, 1 million, that's a lot. Why would you even have that cap? I don't think a lot of people are going to hit that cap. But yeah, that makes more sense. So maximum 20,000 spent per year. So the maximum points that you could get is 400. This one maximum is $50,000 spent. So the maximum points that you could get are 2,500 a year. So are those the highest numbers ever? Probably not, but it is what it is. Overall, I do like that the World Elite card does have some of these coverages, but again, the minimum income requirements are very high, and the points, while I appreciate the 5 points are on restaurants, groceries, stuff like that. Again, if you're comparing points, Cobalt gets you 5 points, but those points are worth a lot more than just 1 cent, right? If you use them correctly with the right partners. So for that reason, this one's probably going to rank a little bit lower, at least from the Cobalt. And this one is just not that great. I mean, these points are very low. And the cap is quite a bit, actually. Like, so I understand that not a lot of people spend more than that, but it is very restrictive as well. So overall, I'm just going to go ahead and put the World Elite card maybe slightly above these other ones and see. I don't think it's good enough to quite go to B, but this one is just much worse. So this one's probably going to go down around the Desjardins cards. Maybe I'll put it right after that Desjardins card. Or maybe just above it. It doesn't matter. So at this point, there are so many cards on the board that maybe not every single ranking is 100% accurate. Maybe one or two can be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. So just take that with a grain of salt. I'm not going to waste too much time here. I'm sure this video is already like God knows how many hours long. So we're just going to move on. Now, last but not least for MBNA, we have the Royal Canadian Legion MBNA Rewards card. And basically, this is a card where a portion of your spending or points or whatever goes towards supporting Canadian veterans, which is always nice. But is the card good on its own merits outside of that? Let's take a look. So we have no annual fees. That's nice to see. There is very, very few insurances or coverages included. There is a mobile device insurance included. That's nice to see. But other than that, not too much. There's basically no travel coverages. That's unfortunate. There is no minimum personal income requirement or household income requirement. That's good. But what do you get with it? So again, remember, these points are worth about 1 cent per point. If redeemed towards travel, you get 2 points per dollar spent on restaurants, groceries, digital media, membership, and household utility purchases. Max 10,000 spent a year, so it's even lower than those other cards that we looked at. And I think that one's actually pretty low, because I'm pretty sure everyone spends at least $10,000 a year, especially if you like have a family and everything. So that one's pretty low. 1 point per dollar spent on all other purchases. So it's not great. I understand that they help support. I want to see if they mentioned. Yeah, they do. They help support veterans. That's very nice. But unfortunately, outside of that, the card isn't all that good. I'll put the card a little bit higher in the category because it has a good cause. Maybe we'll put it like somewhere here around and C. But I do think those other cards are just better, right? So just for the veterans, I'll put it above these other ones. Next up, we get into the Neo cards, and we're going to get right into it with the Neo Mastercard and, of course, the Neo World Mastercard. Let's break them down. So the Neo Mastercard is completely free to own, and so is the Neo World Mastercard. Now, there is some rebates that we got to talk about, but first, let's talk about what the difference between these two is. Why would you go for this one instead of this one if they're the same fee? Well, it's the minimum personal requirements, right? So, minimum income requirements, that is. So this one has a minimum 50,000, which is okay. That's a lot better. A lot of people can fit into that category. Or a minimum household income requirement of 80,000. I think that covers a lot of people. That's nice to see. It's not too restrictive. Whereas the Neo Mastercard is just, if you're even lower than that, you can just get the Neo Mastercard. But I think for most people, you should just go with the World Mastercard very easily over the Neo Mastercard, the regular version. But let's talk about the rebate. So the Neo Mastercard, and again, you can use my link down in the description below. It gets you $60 cash back from Finley Wealth. So if you use that link, you also get an additional $60 on top of the sign-up bonus you already get from Neo themselves. You get an additional $60 from Finley Wealth. You do have to sign up, but it's like a free sign-up. You don't have to like give them any credit card information or anything like that. It's just a normal sign-up with an email on their website, and you can get the $60 right away. And you can choose where you want it. You can have it as e-transfer or a PayPal or whatever other options they have. Whatever the options are, you can choose one of those. So here we got a $60 rebate for the Neo Mastercard. For the Neo World Mastercard, you can see they usually give $50, but until March 31st, so until the end of this month, they give you $100 cash rebate. So if you are looking to get this card or some of the other cards that we're going to go over, there's a couple of specials right now going for the rest of the month or whatever the length of the other ones are. So make sure to take advantage of those, right? And again, I always update the description. So if these numbers change at any point, or if like some of these offers come back or go away or whatever, I will update the description down below. So you can always see exactly what the offers that are available right now actually are. So right now, until the end of this month, you can get $100 cash back on top of their own sign-up bonus. Now, what do they actually have though? That's the actual question. So we got 1% cash back on groceries up to $500. This is the Neo Mastercard, up to $500 per month. Not great. Again, there's credit cards that have higher cashback rates on groceries for no fee. 1% cashback on gas up to $500 a month. 0% cashback on all other purchases if you don't have any money in your Neo Everyday account, right? So you have to have money in the account to get like higher percents. But so you might say, wow, what's good about this card? Well, this is what's good about this card. So there are Neo partners for which you get quite a bit of cash back. On average is 5%, but some of them are actually very high. And the good thing about the partners here is that unlike something like an Air Miles program where the partners are very obscure and very limited, there's actually some really good partners with Neo. And that's one thing I've noticed that's gotten better and better over the years. So if you go back in my YouTube and see like the videos I made on Neo a couple years ago, they weren't as great. They weren't as congratulatory about the credit card because the partners just were not there. And again, the regular rates are like 1% or whatever. So it's not the best. But recently, their partners have been getting better and better. So if you look at the partners that they have right now, and I'm going to show you, and by the way, this is a great blog where they break down all the partners in this website as well. Look at this. We got Subway, which, we're going to ignore the first-time purchases. We're just going to go on the ongoing purchases because the first time, I mean, it's nice, but, you want to look at like where you get long-term with them, right? So with Subway, you get 8% back up to $40, which is fine. That's $500 you got to spend to get $40 back. I don't think anyone's eating at Subway that frequent, or if you are, then Godspeed, I guess. I don't know. There's Boston Pizza, you get 6% back. Papa John's, you get 8% back. Five Guys, you get 3% back. So yeah, the 3% isn't great because again, there's free to own credit cards that give you 4% back at like restaurants and stuff like that. But anything above 4 is actually pretty nice. Like again, like the 8% at Subway, that's pretty nice stuff. Like 8% is nothing to scoff at. And there's more. There's Joey's, that's 8% back, up to $21 every 3 purchases, right? So what does that look like? Let's do the quick maths on that one, right? So that's about $7 per purchase on average. And if it's giving you $8, so basically up to $100 spent per, or up to $300 spent per 3 times that you go there. So that's not that bad. Earl's 5% back. We got the Keg, that's 8%. That's a really good one, right? Keg is actually a very, I really like the Keg restaurant, and 8% back because, that's a bit of a higher end, a little bit more expensive restaurant. 8% back is actually pretty nice. And again, up to $40 per 3 purchases. Remember, $40, 8% with $40 back, that's $500 spent, right? So unless you're spending more than that, I mean, you might be spending a little bit more because it is an expensive place, but you're not probably like 10xing that or anything, right? So maybe you just go slightly over, but that should be still very good. We got Coral Breakfast, 8% back. We got, what else do we have here? Let's take a look. Oh yeah, we got the clothing store. So we got Zara, 2% back. I mean, that's all right. But again, there's cards that give you 2% back on everything. That's not the biggest. Gap, it's 3%. Okay, that's more like it. Lululemon, 2%. It's all right, not bad. Hudson Bay, 2%. Again, all right, not bad. Let's see what else we got. So Loblaws, we get 1%. I mean, that's whatever. Walmart, 1%. Yeah, these are not that great. What else do we have? PharmaSave, 3%. All right, that's not bad. That's not bad. We got 2% back on Amazon Prime. All right. So there's some good stuff here. It's not all great, but there's definitely a couple of partners that if you like go to frequently, and again, you can decide for yourself. These are the partners that you usually go and spend money at. If so, then you can take a look at the Neo Mastercard or the Neo World Mastercard. So what's the difference between these two? The Neo World Mastercard gets you 2% cash back on grocery up to $1,000 spending per month. Okay, that's more like it. I don't think a lot of people spend more than $1,000 a month on groceries, again, unless you have a large family. So 2% for a free-to-own card, that's all right. Remember, the Amex Simply Cash, the free version, also gets you 2%. 2% cash back on gas. Again, the Amex Simply Cash, the free version, also gets you 2%. The 2% cash back on recurring purchases, that's actually very nice for a no-fee card. That's pretty much the standard rate, is about 2% for the recurring purchases. This is the kind of a weak part though, the 0.5% cash back on all other purchases. But remember, some of those other partners were giving you 1% back on a lot of the stuff as well. So there is that one as well. So overall, there's definitely some good qualities to specifically the Neo World Mastercard. Definitely, of course, prefer this one to the Neo Mastercard if you can afford it. For that reason, I'm going to put the Neo Mastercard, and I got to make sure I know which one is which. These are very small, so I believe this is the World. Yeah. So this is the Neo Mastercard. I put this at probably a top of C or somewhere around here. Maybe here at C. But the Neo World Mastercard, that one does go to B very easily, and I think because it does rival the Simply Cash, the free-to-own version, it probably goes somewhere around it. I'm gonna put it slightly above it because again, it is a Mastercard, so it does, about 5% of the places you go to don't accept Amex, at least here in Canada. I know in Europe it's actually very tough to. I've heard to find places that accept Amex, which is kind of interesting. But here in North America, like 90-95% of places you go do accept Amex, but if you have a Mastercard that's pretty much the same, then at least you know that pretty much everywhere accepts it. And of course, there's also the great rebate on offer as well. So I'm going to put it slightly ahead of Simply Cash, but there's not too much between these two. They're both very good. But for some of you, if you do go to some of those partners a lot, then in that case, this definitely would be better than the Simply Cash, the free-to-own version. Now, there is the Neo World Elite Mastercard, which does have $125 a year fee. And again, they're also offering a $125 rebate on this card until the end of this month. Now, after that, I believe it does go lower or something like that. I don't know what the usual rate is. They don't say it here. But they are offering a $125 rebate until the end of this month. Again, links in the description. But let's take a look at what they offer. So they do have more coverages. That's very nice to see. They have stuff like trip cancellation, which is, again, usually for the more premium cards. That's very good to see. Do they have mobile device? I don't see mobile, so I guess they don't have mobile device. That's been unfortunate, but they do have a lot of the other coverages. That's good to see. So there is Airport Lounge Dragon Pass, but again, it's pass only. It's not complimentary visits. It's $32 per visit, which, I mean, you can decide whether that's something that's worth it for you or not. And the minimum personal income requirements, I'm going to get to the other card in a second, by the way. There's a reason I'm not going over that one just yet. The minimum personal income requirement is $80,000, personal or household of $150,000. Again, a little bit more. We're getting into the Desjardins territories here, so it's definitely not for everyone. But hey, the cashbacks have actually improved drastically. So the last time I made a video about this was about a year ago, and I talked about how the cashbacks, the standard cashback rates at the time were very low, and that wasn't good. But hey, I guess they either saw my video or they just had a lot of people saying the same thing, so they improved the cashback rates quite a bit. That's very nice to see. So the card is actually a lot better now compared to what it was a year ago. So if you see that old video of mine where I'm talking about like how disappointing this card is, they have improved it. So that's very good. Credit where it's due. They give 5% cashback on grocery up to $1,000, which is again similar to the BMO, the paid version of the cashback card. Very good. We got 4% back on recurring purchases. That's again very good. That's the standard, is 4% back on recurring purchases. We're going to get into with the Scotia Momentum cards in a little bit. They also give you something similar. We got 3% cash back on gas up to 1,000, which is good, but remember the Simplii Cash Preferred for a similar fee gives you 4% back on gas. So this one could have been a little bit higher, but it is what it is. And now, again, remember, for all these rates, you do get a higher rate if you have money in your new everyday account. But, of course, the flip side of that is that any money you have in your everyday account doesn't get interest. So I wouldn't recommend having money in your new everyday account, which is kind of like a checking account. I wouldn't recommend keeping money there just so you can get higher percentages here. So that's why I'm only going over the base percentages, because that's really what you should be judging for whether you want to get this card or not. You have 1% cashback on everything else. And of course, you have all those partner rates that we went over. So this one is definitely quite a bit better when it comes to cashback compared to even the Neo World Mastercard. But it is a bit restrictive, and I would have liked to see at least some mobile device insurance or something like that, since you are paying for it, and other cards in this territory like the Simplii Cash Preferred or a bunch of other cards too, not just those ones. To be fair, there's a bunch of other cards as well that give you the mobile device protection for this kind of a fee. So I would have liked to see that here as well, and maybe if the minimum income requirement was a little bit lower to be a little bit more inclusive, that would have been nice too. So overall, I like it a little bit less than the World Card, the Neo World Card, but I'm sure there are people out there for whom this will be a worthy investment. So I will put it here, slightly above the CIBC Aeroplan cards. Or should I? I'm trying to think, because these ones, it's actually very close. You know what? We'll just put it there for now, and maybe depending on the day, it could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But I would say that the Neo World Card, for what you're getting, and given that it's free to own, is probably slightly better than the World Elite Card. Unless, again, you have very special needs that this card meets over the other one. Now, last but not least, for Neo, we have the Neo Cathay. And let me bring this up here. Where to go? Yeah, you have the Neo Cathay World Elite MasterCard. Now, this is basically the card that's the go-to card for people who travel a lot to Asia specifically. So if you travel a lot to East Asia, whether China, Japan, South Korea, whatever, in that region, then this card is probably the best card for you. And we're going to go over why that is, because you basically get Asia points, right? Asia mile points, or whatever they're called. We're going to go over it in a second. So it costs you about $180 a year to own, but it does get you a lot of the coverages. Again, the only one that's missing, or actually a couple there's missing. I was going to say the only one that's missing is the mobile device insurance, but it's also a little bit discouraging to see that they don't have trip cancellation or trip interruption. That would have been nice to have as well. That would have been good to have. But at least the emergency out-of-province medical insurance is for 2 weeks, so that's a little bit better than some of those other cards that we went over. And we have the Airport Lounge, the Dragon Pass, but again, it's just the pass. It's not complimentary visits. Again, it's probably something similar to this. So that's not great, but hey, at least you are getting something, right? You're getting some sort of an access. But again, why do you want to get this card if you travel a lot to Asia? So there's a good sign-up bonus of 20,000 Asia miles that you get in the beginning after spending $5,000 in your first 90 days. But besides that, and again, I don't want to put too much of a point on the welcome bonus, you do get 2 Asia miles per dollar spent on Cathay Pacific flights. And just to give you guys some context, Asia miles are worth about 1.8 cents, right? So quite a bit higher than the average one, probably close to 2 cents. So when you get 2 points per dollar spent, that's about 4% value back. You get 1 Asia mile per dollar spent in Canada. So that's about 2% value back. And then you get an average of 5 Asia miles when you spend at the Neo partners, right? So again, similar to the ones that we saw with the World Card or the World Elite MasterCard, those partners that we took a look at, you get 5 points per dollar spent at any of those, right? So that's pretty good, right? This is the big one, right? These ones are okay, like the 2 points per dollar spent here, 1 point per dollar spent here. That's basically 2% value back on everything. That's all right. It's not bad, but this is the big one, right? So 5 points per dollar spent, that's about 10% value back on those partners. That's very, very nice. But of course, that's only if you are redeeming it towards Asian flights, right? So if you're redeeming it towards other stuff, it's going to be a lot less valuable, right? So if you are someone who flies to Asia a lot, this is the card to go with. There's also a save up to 15% off of flights to Asia and beyond when you pay with this card and you use this discount code, apparently. So there's that as well. There's very good things with this card if you specifically travel a lot to Asia, particularly with the points that you get and the discounts that you get. It's very good, and it is the only card that is specifically targeting the Asian travel market, right? So if you are someone who travels a lot to Asia, this is the one to definitely go with. And right now there is also a $100 cashback as well offered by Finley Wealth if you again sign up from the link in the description below. And again, remember, you're also supporting the channel as well when you're using those links down below, which I always appreciate. But yeah, so those are the categories that you get a lot of points are basically the partners, right? The partners, you get a ton of value, but the minimum personal income requirement and the minimum household income requirement are very high again, right? Similar to the World Elite Mastercard. So unfortunately, not everyone's going to be able to get this card, but if you do qualify for the minimum income requirements and you are someone who travels a lot to Asia, like, don't even bother with any other card. This is the first one you should get. So we're going to go ahead and put it somewhere probably in B. I don't think I can quite put it in A because it's very limited, right? Like, it's not a case of a card that you can put, like, not most people can get it, first of all, because of the minimum income requirement. And on top of that, not a lot of people are like frequent travelers to Asia. Like, you might go like once in a while, right? Like, one year you travel to Japan or something, and then another year you travel to Europe, another year you travel, I don't know, to the United States or something. For those people, this wouldn't be the card, right? This is the card specifically people who have like either families in Asia or just love the Asian culture, to just love going to different Asian countries over and over again. If you're that type of a person, then definitely this is the card for you. If not, then there's probably other cards that are slightly better. So I'm wrestling a little bit with it because it's very good for those specific people, but it's not maybe as good for everyone else. So I'll probably put it somewhere around here. Whereas, like, again, the Neo World card is like just a very good card for a lot of people, right? So I'll put it right there. Again, if you are someone who travels a lot to Asia, this will probably like somewhere around here, but I'll just put it here for now. Next up, we get into the PC cards. Again, these are cards that were also asked a lot about in the comments of my last video, my last ranking video, so I'm going to include them here again. We got the PC Mastercard and we got the PC World Elite Mastercard. Again, I'm going to go through these very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time because they're both not that great. They're both free to own. They don't have that many coverages. There's some like car rental damage and emergency out-of-province medical insurance for at least 10 days. That's all right with the World Elite Mastercard. But of course, this one, you do need a very high personal income requirement. Again, 80,000, 150,000, the very higher one. Whereas with the PC Mastercard, you don't have the income requirements. And, you know, the PC points, when you're redeeming towards groceries or gas, they're worth about 0.1 cent per point. So very, very low worth on the points. You get 25 points on every dollar spent at Shoppers Drug Mart. So that's about 12.5% value back. You get basically 2% value back at Esso on mobile, and you get basically 1% value back on everything else. Not that great, very, very limited use, just Shoppers Drug Mart, not any other groceries or whatever. So basically for most cases, you're just getting 1% value back. Not that great, but you know, it is what it is. At least it's free to own, I guess. It probably goes like somewhere in like, probably goes to D straight, honestly. Whereas with this one, it's very restrictive. Not everyone can get it, but you do get at least 4.5% value back at Shoppers Drug Mart. Again, unless you shop at Shoppers Drug Mart exclusively or something like that, probably not that big a deal. 3% value back at Atlantic Superstore. Extra Foods, we got Loblaws, Canadian Superstore. So a bunch of these stuff, basically the partners. The partners of PC, or the I don't know if PC owns these places. These specific places, you get a good amount of value back. You get 20 points, which is 2% value back per dollar spent in PC travel. Again, about 2% value back at Esso on mobile, but again, 1% value back. So overall, what I'm trying to say is that I don't like either of these cards. Now, if you specifically shop a lot at these places, you can take a look at them. But for most part, I'm just going to dump both of them. And, you know, no offense to PC at all, but I'm just going to dump both of them in D and not worry too much about it, to be honest. And there's only one more PC card that we're going to go over, and that is the PC Insiders World Elite Mastercard. This one costs $120 a year to own. It does get you some insurance coverages. There's at least, again, the emergency out-of-province medical insurance for 10 days, but again, not too many coverages. For the first year, the fee is waived, but after that, it's $120 a year. There is the minimum personal income requirement of $80,000, household of $150,000, again, very high. But hey, the rewards are a little bit better, so you get about 7% value back per liter spent at S1 Mobile, and you get, what is this, 50 plus 20? All right, that's some weird stuff going on here. 50 points per dollar spent at Shervin, so about 5% value back. So you get the gist. Again, it's the partners, so you get to pay a little bit more to get the same partners. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to drop this. Because this one is actually paid as well, I'm just going to dump it at the very bottom. So PC, no offense to you, but you got to pick it up. And to everyone who was asking for me to cover these cards in my last video, I hope that was satisfactory. I'm sorry if I disappointed you with these, but that's just what I think of these cards. To be honest, they're very limited in use, and unless you have those specific needs, I just don't think anyone should even bother with them, to be honest. Next up, we get into the RBC cards, and the RBC cards are extremely popular. So let's take a look at how well they do against some of these other cards. And we're going to first start with the cashback cards. We got the RBC Cashback Mastercard and also the Cashback Preferred World Elite. The Cashback Mastercard is free to own. World Elite is about $100 a year to own. And they don't have a ton of coverages. The paid version does have car rental damage and theft, but other than that, they don't have really that many coverages. This is not too encouraging, but at least the minimum income requirement isn't there for Cashback Mastercard. For the World Elite Mastercard, it's again 80 and 150, which is quite a bit actually. But let's take a look at what they offer. So the Cashback Mastercard gets you 2% back on groceries, which again, there's a card that gets you more than that with the BMO Mastercard, the BMO Cashback Mastercard for free. There is 0.5% cashback on all other purchases for the first 6,000 spent, and then 1% cashback on all purchases after 6,000 spent. So either way you want to look at it, again, there's a Simplii Cash, the Simplii Cash Amex card, I should say, that is free to own. And that one gets you 1.25% cashback on everything. So whether it's before 6K or after 6K, you're still getting less than that one. So overall, not the best. There's not really there's some gas saving, like 3 cents per liter or something like that, but overall not loving this card. It probably goes somewhere in C, just off the top of my head. And then this card, the World Elite Mastercard, 1.5% cashback on all purchases for the first 25,000 spent, and then 1% on all purchases after the 25,000 spent. Now this is getting you a little bit more than the Simplii Cash, the free-to-own version, but compared to the Simplii Cash Preferred, which is, again, has a similar fee to this World Elite Mastercard, that one gets you 2% cashback on everything, as well as 4% on gas and groceries. This one gets you 1.5% on everything for the first 25,000 spent, and after that, it's even less. So overall, both of them not that great. Now, the RBC World Elite Mastercard does get you a Dragon Pass, but again, complimentary visits are not included. So again, you have to pay every time you go. So again, it's not just the best. They're both probably around C somewhere, so we're just gonna dump him right in. Sorry, I know RBC has a lot of fans. They're usually not super happy with me because they want to see RBC treated better. But we're gonna dump them somewhere in C, and C is so crowded. I don't even know where to put it, to be honest with you. Probably somewhere around the MBNA cards. Probably somewhere here. Probably slightly better than MBNA, I'd say. And then this one, I probably prefer the free-to-own version as well, because this one is so restrictive as well. Yeah, that's about it. It's kind of starting to get out of hand. I'm not gonna lie. There's so many cards on here. It's hard to keep track of where is what, and I'm already forgetting which one is which. But it's okay. We keep marching forward. We don't stop. We don't quit. Next up, we have the RBC Allianz Visa cards, and I remember last time I did the ranking, I didn't rank them too high, and a lot of people were upset about that in the comments. So I'll make sure to give it closer look and make sure I'm actually giving it a first shake this time around as well. This one has 0 annual fee. The Ion Visa card, Ion Plus Visa card, costs about $50 a year to own. Again, very limited coverages. At least this one, the $50 a year version, gets you the mobile device insurance up to $1,000. But other than that, again, there's not a lot of coverages. If you've been watching this entire video, you've seen that so many cards have so much more coverages. Even a lot of no fee cards, or even a lot of free, not free to own, but like $40 a year, $50 a year, those cards, even those cards have something, right? So it's very naked here, and I don't love it, to be honest. Again, we talked about the annual fees. There's no income requirement with the Ion Visa card or the Ion Plus Visa card. That's nice to see. That's not restrictive. There's some welcome bonuses, which are nice. And we're going to talk about Avion points, right? So you get Avion points on these ones. Now, according to this source, if you transfer to WestJet specifically, the Avion points are worth about 1 cent per point. But if you spend it other places, even on travel, it's actually worth less. So with these cards, if you do get the points, if you do have them, you want to make sure you transfer those points to WestJet specifically to get the best chance of getting a good amount of value out of those points. But let's take a look at the points that you get. You get 1.5 points for the free version per dollar spent on grocery, rides, gas, electric vehicle charging, streaming, digital gaming, subscription, blah, 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 blah. Basically 1.5% value back, again, assuming you're transferring it to WestJet, on a lot of these categories, and then 1% value back on everything else. It's not that bad. It's actually all right. It's definitely better than the other RBC versions that we were looking at, because there's a lot of categories that you get more than 1% value back for a free-to-own card. But other than these, they don't really offer a lot of coverage and stuff like that. So I'm thinking if it goes to B, it probably goes to very low B. Maybe just a high C makes more sense. The Ion Plus Visa card gets you 3 points per dollar spent at grocery, dining, food delivery, rides, gas, blah, blah, blah. So many of these. You can just read them yourself. I've been talking for hours on end, so that's why I'm just gonna take it easy a little bit. 1 point for everything else. So about 3% value back on those categories, about 1% value back on everything else. Again, it's not that bad. It does cost $50, so it's cheaper than something like a Simplii Cash Preferred, which is about double, a little bit more than double the fee. But it gets something. It's not that bad. But I would rather just get the Simplii Cash Preferred, which gets you so much more coverage, and also gets you just higher cashback rates on gas, groceries with 4%, and also gets you 2% for everything else across the board, right? So, and you don't have to worry about, I have to transfer specifically to WestJet to get a lot of value. You just know you're already getting cashback. Whereas with this one, you have to go specifically to WestJet to get a decent amount of value. So I don't love them, but it's not that bad. I'd probably put them at a low B. I was quite mean to the other RBC cards, so I'll be a little bit nicer to these two. I'll put them at a low B. Probably somewhere around the Costco card. Maybe Costco card slightly below them, because Costco card is just one that you have by default if you want to have it, but otherwise it's not the best card either. So I'll just put it there. Next up, we have the RBC Avion Visa Platinum and RBC Avion Visa Infinite. There's also a Visa Infinite Privilege, which we're going to get into in a second. But the Platinum version is $120 a year to own. The Visa Infinite version is also $120 a year to own. But again, if you look at the minimum income requirement, the Visa Platinum doesn't have minimum income requirements, whereas the Visa Infinite has 60,000 and 100,000 personal and household. So again, if you are earning more than these amounts, then you should just go for the Visa Infinite instead of the Visa Platinum, because it's the same fee. But let's take a look at if you should go for either of these cards anyway. So they do have a lot of the coverages. So this is finally looking a lot better as far as coverages go. There's no mobile device insurance that I can see for the Platinum card, but there is $1,500 for the Visa Infinite. That's nice to see. So it's more than something like Simplii Cash Preferred, which gets you $1,000. There's 15 days. That's what I like to see for the emergency out-of-province medical insurance. It's on 3 days, like some of those Desjardins cards. 15 days is very good. That's very standard. And you can see the rest of the coverages are pretty much the same across the board. There's trip return options double, and trip cancellation is a little bit higher on the Visa Infinite card, but for the most part, they're the same. Oh, flight delays less. That's odd. So you get less for flight delay. That must be a mistake, right? That must be wrong. That can't be. That would be very odd if that's the case. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. We move on to see what you get, what kind of points you get. So again, it's the Avion points that you're getting. Again, if you transfer to WestJet, it's about 1 cent per point. But again, apparently, according to these, with these cards specifically, if you transfer to airline partners, you might get a little bit more. So that's where it gets a little confusing. Again, the bad thing about Avion points is that it's very confusing as far as where you can best spend it, right? There are some people who claim it's best to spend within just the Avion rewards, or some people say it's better to transfer to WestJet. Some people say it's better to other places. So you know what, we're just going to go with whatever the website tells us. If it tells us it's 1.4 cents per point or 1.5 cents per point, whatever, we'll just go with that and see where that takes us. Okay, but just keep that in mind that some of these numbers are a little bit out there. And again, I don't have any RBC cards myself. I should also say that. I've never had any RBC cards, mostly because I don't like them very much, to be honest. But I've never had RBC cards, so I've never experienced it firsthand. With the Amex cards, I've had Amex cards for so long, for like, I don't even know how many years now. 4 years probably, I think. I've had the Cobalt card. Was it 4 years? Something like that, right? So I've had it for years. I've already tried all the different scenarios of how you can spend the points. So I know very well how you can redeem those. But for these ones, I haven't had any experience with them myself. I've just always gone based on what, you know, all these sources are claiming it to be, and I've never found any source that says it's a very good way to spend points. But hey, if you know for a fact that it's otherwise, then that's fine. Just go for the RBC cards. It's no problem. I know a lot of people get upset. RBC has a very loyal following, and they always comment on my videos. Oh, you're not being fair to RBC. All right, fine. If you love RBC, go for the RBC cards. No big deal. It's totally fine. So the RBC Avion Visa Platinum gets you 1 point per dollar spent on everything. So again, if you believe these numbers, that's about 1.5% value back, which is pretty nice, actually. That's not bad. It's higher than the Simplii Cash card, which gets you 1.25% cash back, but that's cash back. This one, if you can get those kinds of returns, so just keep that in mind. But hey, it could at least be somewhere around there. We could put it in B with a clear conscience. For the Avion Visa Infinite card, or actually, I shouldn't compare it to that, because this one is not free to own. I just forgot for a second. I thought it was free to own. It's $120 a year. So you should really compare it to the Simplii Cash Preferred, which is also $120 a year. So in that sense, it's actually not that great, because that card gets you 2% cash back on everything else, as well as higher on gas and groceries. So it's actually not that great. Never mind. This goes down to C. If it was free to own, it would go a little bit higher, but it's not. RBC Avion Visa Infinite gets you 1.25 points per dollar spent on travel. So that's 1.5 times 1.25. Not super easy maths here. Let's see. That's 25% of 1.5. What is that? 3.333, I think. Is it? I don't even know, man. I've been talking for too long on this video. We'll just say whatever, it's less than 2%. Let's just put it that way. It's less than 2% value back on travel and about 1.5% value back on other purchases. So it's definitely better than this one for sure. But again, it is very restrictive. It's not that restrictive. It's not 80 and 150 to be fair. It's only 60 and 100, which is better than some of the other cards. So maybe we can put this one at the low B, the Avion Visa Infinite, but then or actually maybe not, because again, it's very low. It's less than 2% on a lot of this, right? So it's still nowhere near as good as a Simplii Cash Preferred. So yeah, I think we just have to put them both at a high C. That's, I think, the best place to go. And I think we don't have this card, actually. I just realized that. So we don't have the Avion Visa Platinum card on this rating, which is unfortunate. I thought I covered all the cards, but I guess we're missing that one. It is what it is. Just assume I put that one at a high C as well, and I'll put this one at a high C as well. I'll put probably slightly below the CIBC dividend, maybe right there above the regular Neo Mastercard. And yeah, imagine the other platinum one is right here as well alongside it. We have the RBC Avion Visa Infinite Privilege, which is quite a bit more expensive. It's $400, I should say, a year to own. I'm already slipping. I know it's a long video, to be fair to me. Let's see what we got. So we got all of these coverages. Some of them are quite a bit higher, so like flight delays, double, trip cancellation is quite a bit higher. We got 31 days emergency out-of-promise medical insurance. That's pretty good. We got a higher hotel burglary. We got basically everything is higher, right? We got 1,500, it was 1,500 on this one as well, so never mind. We got 2,500 on stolen or lost baggage. That's 5 times more than the other card. That's pretty good. So we got good coverages. We got Dragon Pass with 6 complimentary lounge visits per year, so that's good. Again, Dragon Pass isn't the most extensive, and again, if you guys want me to make a video going over all the different airport lounge programs and comparing them, I can do that. Let me know in the comments down below. But it's not the most extensive, but hey, at least you are getting 6 complimentary visits a year. So if you go to an airport that has those kinds of lounges, you can take advantage. That's good to see. The minimum personal requirement is 200,000. That's quite a bit, and household income as well as also 200,000. So this is very restrictive. Most people can't get this card. 1.25 points per dollar spent on eligible purchases, and again, if we assume that's 1.5 times or whatever, that's about slightly less than 2% back on everything. Very low. Unfortunately, that's very low. I know there are a lot of RBC fans watching this, but I'm sorry, that's just low. If this card was offering, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3 points per dollar spend, now we can talk about it, right? So, and for $400, you gotta give us something, right? So $400 a year, I understand that there is some airport lounge access, but again, it's either give us like a couple of different airport lounge programs, like give us the Dragon Pass and Plaza Premium and maybe like something else. You know what I mean? Like in those instances, it gets a lot better. There are some priority travel benefits, like you get fast track lanes and stuff like that. So, I mean, sure, I guess that's nice to have, but it's not something that makes me go like, let me go spend $400 on a card right now, right? So, not that great. The sign-up bonus is pretty good, 35,000 points upon approval. So again, remember that's 1.5. How many points is that? That's quite a bit actually. 335,000 times 1.5 cents. That gets you about $500. That's pretty good on approval. So that's basically the free for the first year you get as a sign-up bonus, and a bunch more if you spend this amount, whatever. Not the best. The fee is very high. The cashback is very low. There are some features, not that great. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to put it right next to the other one. I'm going to put the other one slightly higher. So out of the RBC Avion cards, I probably would go just for the Infinite, not the Infinite Privilege, or the Platinum. I'll probably just go for the Infinite out of those 3 if you have to have the RBC Avion cards. But yeah, overall, I just think that there are a lot of cards that are just better, whether they have fees or they don't have fees. And last but not least, for RBC, we have the RBC British Airways Visa Infinite. And this one, again, annual fee is $165. They do have a lot of these coverages, but not all of them. They don't have the mobile device insurance, trip cancellation, trip interruption, stuff like that, which this card that costs less actually has. This card costs $120 and has all of these coverages. This one, it's odd that it doesn't have those coverages for a little bit more a year. But I mean, hey, let's see what they do with the features. Maybe they make up for it somewhere. Well, there is an eCompanion Award e-voucher when you spend $30 or more in any calendar year. So the companion voucher would be nice, but again, you have to spend quite a bit to get that for British Airways. So if you do spend that anyways, then sure, that would be a good voucher to get, and that could mean like basically, I believe that's just another ticket, right, or something like that. That could be worth it. Discount, there's 10% off of British Airways flights when you book and pay with your card. Okay, that's pretty nice. But again, I assume that has to be done directly with British Airways, and when you do it directly with an airline, sometimes you get a good deal, but not always. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And I'm assuming if you do it through Expedia, it doesn't work or something like that. So again, hit or miss. Could be good for some people, maybe not for everyone. If you, I guess, travel a lot to Britain specifically, maybe you could look at that, or maybe just a lot to Europe and you just have layovers through Britain, maybe you can look at that. Minimum personal income requirement is 60,000. Minimum household is 100,000. So a little restrictive, but not too restrictive. You get Avios points. So what are Avios points worth? Let's take a look at what this website has to say about them. I have no experience with the Avios points. It's about 1.7 cents according to them. So I'm just going to take their word for it. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I have no idea what Avios points are worth. I've never dealt with this. At least with Avion points, I've read other people's opinions. Avios, I have no idea what that is. But just keeping it 100% with you guys. If you want to do more research on it, feel free. We get 3 points per dollar spent on British Airways, so that's about 5% value back according to this. You get 2 points per dollar spent on dining, so that's about 3.5% value back. Again, there's a free to own card that gets you 4% value back. I know I said this like 500 times in this video, but we still haven't got to it because goddamn Alphabet. But we'll get to that card very soon. And then we get 1 point per dollar spent on all other qualifying purchases. So that's about a little less than 2% value back on everything else. So it's actually not that bad, about 1.7. But remember, you have to spend these points on travel specifically. I'm not sure if it's travel with British Airways specifically or not. If it's not, then okay, that's actually not that bad. But if it is specifically with British Airways, then it's very restrictive. So again, I'm not going to put it too high simply because of how niche it is. It's very specifically for people who are interested in British Airways specifically. So I'll just keep it simple and I'll put it somewhere in C alongside the other ones. I'll probably put it below the Avion cards, but there's definitely some merit to it if you specifically like have family in England or something and you travel there frequently, then maybe that's something you can look at, but otherwise not really. Now the WestJet RBC World Elite Mastercard is a really good card because it specifically gets you a companion voucher for WestJet flights. So we'll go into what that is in a second, but this card costs $120 a year to own. It does get you some insurance coverages, not all of them though. Like there's no mobile device insurance. There's trip interruption to be fair, but a lot of the other stuff is not as much, like emergency medical out of province insurance. 15 days, that's pretty good actually. That's not bad. It's less than this one, but it's still decent. We got car rental, damage and theft, baggage delay. We don't have lost or stolen baggage, so that's not that great. But we got some stuff. It's not that bad. We do have Dragon Pass, but again, there's no complimentary visits included. It's just a pass. But if you trade in your companion voucher, which we're going to go over in a second, you could get 4 complimentary visits, right? So you could choose which one you want. So if that's something that you prefer to have, 4 complimentary visits a year, then you could get that as well. And of course, this is a very good one. This is a free first checked bag, right? So anytime you are flying with WestJet and you're the primary card holder of this card, it's a free first check bag for you and up to 8 guests, right? So if you just take advantage of this once, and let's say you're traveling with, I don't know, 2 other people, so not even 8, you could do it up to 8, but let's say you're traveling with 2 other people, you all have bags that you want to check, that's already like what, $30-40 per bag. You already made back the entire money that it costs to own this card a year, because that's $30-40 per each of you, so that's about $100-120 a year, like just right there for the checked baggages. You already made it back, the fee for that year, right? And if you are traveling back with them again, that's another $30-40, so you're already in the black. But on top of that, there is the voucher, right? So if you're traveling within Canada or to the US, except for Hawaii, between $120 or $400, if that's the price of your ticket, what you can do is that you can use the companion voucher to get a second ticket for free. And that's pretty powerful, because that means that, let's say if you're traveling from, I don't know, let's say Vancouver to Calgary or something, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of a flight that doesn't cost more than $400. I think Vancouver to Toronto would be above that, depending on the time of the year. Unless if you buy it like on a low season, something where it's below $400, then in that case you get 2 tickets for the price of 1, which is just absolutely amazing. So if you do travel at least like once or twice a year domestically, and you're okay doing that with WestJet instead of like Air Canada or something like that, then this card is absolutely amazing. So for that reason, I'm going to put this card very high up in the ranking, but let's first take a look at the rewards that you get with it as well. So you get 2% back in WestJet dollars per dollar spent on WestJet flights or WestJet packages, and you also get 1.5% back in WestJet dollars on other purchases. So basically you get the 1.5% value back on everything as long as you spend it towards WestJet, right? So that's pretty good, because remember, you want to spend it towards WestJet to get the companion voucher and stuff like that, or the first free checked bag. So if you're getting this card, you already are spending money towards WestJet flights anyways. So the fact that you're getting 1.5% cash back on everything is actually pretty good, because, and I know that, like other cards in this tier for $120 a year get you more cash back, but remember, we're not getting this card for the cash back itself. We're getting the card mostly for those features, for the first free checked bag up to 8 people, and also the companion voucher that you get, right? So once you get those features, you already not only made back the fee, but you're also in the black. You're also in the profit quite a bit. So that's really the reason you get it. So it's just nice that it's not like 1% back. That's why I'm saying it this way. But of course, if you're just looking for pure cash back, something like the Amex Simpli Cash Preferred gets you 2% cash back on everything and also 4% on gas and groceries. So that one's better, of course, as far as cash back alone. But overall, this is a really good card. I am going to put it right up there in A, actually. So that's let me just bring this up. So we're going to go to A and put it above that, actually. So we're finally putting some cards up here. I'm just realizing how middle heavy this list is. I guess I'm very tough on these cards. I don't give away S's and A's too easily. And also, to be fair, there's a couple of very good cards that we just haven't got to yet. Again, Alphabet is doing me in here a little bit, but we'll get into those in a second as well. But yeah, this card is a very good card, specifically if you travel domestically within Canada at least once a year. Then you can definitely find a way to really get a lot of value from this card as well. Next up, we arrive at two very popular cards, and those are the Rogers Red Mastercard and Rogers Red World Elite Mastercard. Now, I have made videos on these cards. They are very good. Let's get right into them. Right now, they are both also offering rebates. If you go to Finley Wealth, again, the link is in the description below. If you use that link, you can get this rebate offer, and you'd also be supporting the channel in the meantime, which I always appreciate. But yeah, right now, in addition to the sign-up bonus that you get from Rogers themselves, you also get another $50 in cash rebate from Finley Wealth if you use that link. So if you want to get these cards and you don't already have them, make sure to use that as well. But let's talk about why these cards are so good. And I can already tell you these cards are going very high in the ranking, but let's take a quick look at them. So they're both free to own, which is very nice. And they both offer a ton of cashback and also some other features. So for the Rogers Red Mastercard, and of course you're wondering, well, they're both free. What's the difference? The difference is the minimum income requirement. As usual, again, the Rogers Red Mastercard, everyone can sign up for that. But for the Rogers Red World Elite Mastercard, you would need a minimum personal income of $80,000 or a household income of $150,000, which is quite a bit, but to be fair, there is a free or a no income requirement version as well. So you can just go for the one that works for you. And of course, the biggest difference between these two cards is the insurances that you get, right? So if you have the Rogers Red Mastercard, you actually don't really get any coverages. So it's a good idea to at least have one other card that gets you some coverages for some of those instances. Maybe if you're booking travel or if you need mobile device insurance, then for those, you do want to have maybe one of those other cards that we've talked about so far that does offer you those things. Maybe another card that gets you some other good features as well. But if you can sign up for the Rogers Red World Elite Mastercard, which is definitely not for everyone, you need to have quite a bit, quite a high salary compared to most people. And if that is the case and you can get it, then of course you also get a number of the coverages. You don't have mobile device insurance. That's the only big one that's missing. But you do have a lot of the other good ones. You have the emergency out-of-promise medical insurance up to 10 days, which is actually okay. It's not quite 15, but at least it's not like 3 days like some of those other cards. And you do have both trip cancellation and trip interruption, which is pretty nice as well. Now, there is also some extra benefits if you have Rogers as your provider or Fido as your provider. You also get 5 days of no roaming when you're, outside of your traditional zone that is covered. So if you're, let's say, traveling to Europe or something like that, then for 5 days you also have completely free roaming, which is nice to have, especially if you already have a Rogers or a Fido plan for your cell phone. Now, for the Rogers Red World Elite Mastercard, you also have the Airport Lounge Dragon Pass, but again, the pass only. It's not complimentary visits, but again, it's a free-to-own card, so you can't really expect too much out of it, to be fair. Like, if this was a paid card, then yeah, you'd probably want to get some complimentary visits or something like that, but for a free-to-own card, that's totally fine. It's not a big deal. But let's take a look at this. So, the cashbacks. Why is the cashback so good? You get 2% cashback per dollar spent if you have at least one Rogers, Fido, or Shaw service already, right? So this doesn't mean you have to spend it towards these. You can spend it anywhere, right? So let's say you buy groceries, you get the same. You buy whatever else, you get the same, as long as you already have one of these. So if you already have a Rogers phone plan, if you already have a Fido phone plan, or if you have like a Shaw, let's say internet or something like that, then you already will be getting 2% cash back on everything. And again, you don't have to pay any fees for that. But it gets even better because this is the key part. 1.5 time redemption bonus if you spend it towards those, right? So what does that mean? So let's say I have a Rogers phone plan and a Shaw internet plan, right? So let's say my Rogers phone plan is X amount of dollars and my Shaw internet plan is like, I don't know, some other amount of dollars, right? If I just put all my spendings on this card, I'm getting 2% cash back on everything. Let's say I spend $100 on groceries. I spend another, let's say $100 on something else. So what is that? That's 2% cash back on each of them. That's $2 from each, $4 cash back that I've got, right? But now if I take that cash back and I redeem it towards either my phone plan or my Shaw internet, then what happens is that instead of that redeeming for $4, it actually redeems for 50% more. So it would redeem for $6 instead. So what that essentially means is that if you already have one of these plans and you just make sure to always take the cash back that you get from everything that you spend on and use it towards those plans, you're basically getting 3% cash back. And if you already have those plans, I mean, you have to pay them anyways, right? So you might as well just make sure you're taking the cash back and spending it towards that. Because, I mean, does it really make a difference how you pay those? Not really, right? Whether you pay out of pocket or you use the cash back, it's the same. But this way, you get even more out of the cash back. So essentially, if you do it that way, it's almost as if you're just getting 3% cash back on everything, right? Which is absolutely amazing for a no-fee card. And remember, so many cards we looked at so far. If you've skipped ahead, maybe you missed some of those cards, but if you've watched the entire video so far, which I can imagine it's been very long, so hats off to you if you have. But if you have, you've seen that there are a lot of no-fee cards and even some of the paid cards. They don't get you anywhere near 2% on everything, let alone 3% on everything, right? That's just absolutely amazing. So, of course, again, especially the Rogers Red Mastercard, basically no coverages, like very little other features. But as far as cashback alone goes, I mean, it's just absolutely on tour de force. It's the best cashback no-fee card in Canada, hands down. As long as you have one of those plans, if you have Rogers, Fido, or Shaw. If you don't, then you would only get 1% cash back on everything. So in that sense, it actually wouldn't be worth it. So if you already have a Rogers plan, a Fido plan, or a Shaw internet, just one of them, then this card is a must-have for everyone. If you have a lower income than the 80,000 or the 150,000 household, the Rogers Red Mastercard is a must-have for everyone. If you have one of those plans, that is. And I'll talk about what you do if you don't. But if you do have higher than 80,000 or 150,000 household, then Rogers Red World Elite Mastercard is absolutely must-have. Now, what if you don't already have? And of course, there's another feature we're going to talk about here, which is a little bit more cashback on US dollar purchases, but we'll get into that in a second. What do you do if you don't already have one of these plans, right? If you don't already have Rogers, like for your cell phone, if you don't already have Fido for your cell phone, or Shaw for like your internet or cable or whatever, then in that case, I would look at your contract, right? And it's a very situation dependent. Let's say you have a Bell contract for your phone and it's running out in, let's say, 3 months, right? Then in that sense, you might want to hold off for now. And 3 months from now, let's assess your options. See, do you want to change carriers to something like Rogers or Fido? And you don't have to. Like, if it makes sense for you to stay with another provider, that's totally fine. I mean, you just got to do what makes sense for you. But if you do end up feeling that, you know what, I could switch to Rogers or Fido without it costing me more or without it costing me any opportunity or any good deal or anything like that, then in that situation, you might want to make that switch just so you can get this credit card, because that's how good this credit card is. Now, I wouldn't do it if it does cost you money. Like if, let's say, I don't know, Bell gives you an amazing deal where you can get, like, let's say your next contract for 50% off or something crazy. I don't think they do that, by the way, but just giving you a hypothetical example, right? If Bell gives you an amazing deal to stay with them, then, okay, that makes sense. You should probably just stay with them. But if they don't, or if, Rogers is having like a good sale or something like that, then it's a good idea to make that switch so you can also get this card as well. Now, with the World Elite card, if you have it, there's another feature. So you have the same cashbacks with the 2% cashback on everything, which would turn into 3% if you redeem it towards one of those plans. But there is one is that 3% cashback on US dollar purchases. So again, if you get 3% cashback on those and then, redeem it towards one of those plans, that would be basically 4.5% value back that you're getting on it, which is crazy. And then on top of that, there is 1.5% cashback on all purchases if you do not have one qualifying service. So this one is a little bit higher. So the World Elite Mastercard is slightly different. For this one, if you have the income to be able to qualify for the World Elite Mastercard, if you don't already have a Rogers, Fido, or Shaw plan, it is close enough where you could just get it for now and start using it, and then in the future look to see if there's an opportunity to be able to get the higher cashback by having one of those plans. Another option is, if you have a family plan or something like that, if it's possible, this is something you got to look into yourself. If it's possible, putting your name on the family plan so that you can be able to qualify for this card. So that's something else you can look at. I'm not entirely sure if you're able to do it if your name isn't on it. Like, I know if you have the account, I don't know if for sure if you can do it. From what I know, and take this with a grain of salt, but from what I know, your name has to be the same on the account. So even if you do have a family plan, you still can't use it to open up a credit card in a different name, as far as I know, right? So take that with a grain of salt. If someone can do it, let me know in the comments down below. But as far as I know, it has to be the same name. But yeah, so if you could get this card because you have the higher income, that is, even if you don't already have one of those plans, it's still very good. It's still 1.5% cashback, which, for all those cards that give you cashback on everything, this is even higher than the Amex Simplii Cash, the free version, right? And really the biggest deal about these cards is that they're free to own, right? If they were paid, then there will be like a lot of things to consider. Okay, is it worth having over this other card, or is it worth paying for over this other card, or whatever? But because they're both free to own, there's just no arguing about it. This is so good. It's so good. It's some of the highest cashback rates you can ask. If you get the Rogers World Elite Mastercard, you also get a lot of the coverages. Not every single one, but there's quite a bit. And it's just really good. And the higher cashback rate on US dollar purchases also means that, when you're paying the foreign transaction fee, you're also recovering quite a bit of it as well. So overall, these two cards are absolutely amazing. And for that reason, in my opinion, there is only one place, and I have the old picture here for the World Elite Mastercard. Now it's red. It used to be black. But so just so you guys are aware what that one is. But I'm going to put both of them in. I can't even scroll up. Okay, I'll stop here. They're both going to S. There's no doubt about it. And they're both going above Platinum. Honestly, they're probably going above Cobalt as well. Yeah, so let's go over here. And of course, the World Elite, if you can get it, is even better. So for that reason, we're going to put it above the Rogers Red Mastercard. So these are by far the best ones right now in the world. There's only, not in the world, that's in Canada, I should say. But there's only one other card in Canada that I would say even comes close as far as the best no-fee cashback credit card. And that is a card that we're going to get into very soon after we go through the Scotiabank cards. But there's only one other card here. I'll give you a preview. It's right there. But that card is probably the only other card that I would say is an amazing no-fee cashback card, right? As far as no-fee cashback cards go, it's just the two Rogers cards and that other card, which we're going to get into in a second. Other than that, a lot of these are, some of them are good, but nowhere near. Next up, we're getting into the Scotiabank cards, and we're going to start right out with the two most popular options. These two are very popular. The Gold American Express card was highly requested in the comments of my last video, so I'm definitely going to talk about it here. And of course, they're both offering very good rebates as well. So again, using the link down below, it'll take you to Finley Wealth, where you will get this offer. And you can also still get the sign-up bonuses from Scotiabank themselves as well on top of it. So right now, Gold American Express is offering $100 cash back, or cash rebate, I should say. And the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card is offering, for a limited time, $150 cash rebate. It's usually $100, but until the end of March, they're offering $150 in cash rebate. So very good deal right there to take advantage of if you're interested in these cards. And we're going to go over what these cards offer in a second, but they're both on the medium tier of annual fee that you pay. They're kind of similar to like the Simplii Cash Preferreds of the world, where they're like $120, $150, something like that. So it's actually basically Simplii Cash Preferred pricing and Cobalt pricing right here. That's basically what it is. So for the Gold American Express card, the Scotiabank Gold American Express card, we have $120 a year. Scotiabank Passport is slightly higher at $150 a year. And basically the main, let me just jump the gun. The main benefit of these cards and why they're so popular is that they both offer no foreign transaction fees. Now there's some other stuff that they offer as well. We're going to go into them, but that's the big showstopper, right? So if you spend a lot of money, either with, let's say, American businesses or with European, whatever, or if you just travel a lot and you spend a lot of money outside of Canada, then in those situations, that really adds up, right? Because basically every time you're doing a transaction, there's like a 2%, 2.5%, 1.5% foreign transaction fee. It's slightly different from card to card, but it's somewhere in that range, right? So after, like a couple of transactions, that starts to build up over and over again. So if you are someone who does spend a lot of money either outside of Canada or makes a lot of transactions with international merchants or anything of the sort, then in that situation, that really starts to add up, and cards like these start to become very attractive, especially given that they also offer some other really good benefits as well. But if you are someone who does travel a lot, particularly outside of North America, then in that situation, it's actually not the best idea to go with the Scotiabank Gold Amex card. And I'll explain why that is. It's actually much better to go with the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card, regardless of all the other stuff that we're going to talk about. And the reason for that is because usually in Europe, it's actually a lot harder to come by places that accept Amex. So I know a lot of people always argue in my comments that, none of the merchants accept Amex, whatever. In Canada and the US, that's actually not the case. In Canada and US, from my own experience, I've had Amex cards for many, many years now. What I found is that 90 to 95% of merchants accept Amex here in North America. No problem. There's like about 5 to maybe sometimes 10% of merchants that refuse it, but most places accept it. In Europe, it's a little bit different. In Europe, it's actually much lower. I don't know the exact number. I don't want to guess a number. If I had to guess, I would say probably like 50% of places accept it, which is quite a bit. That means like every other store you go to doesn't accept Amex. That's quite a bit. But I'm just guessing, right? So I don't know the actual number, but I know it's very low. It's actually very noticeable. When you go to most European countries, probably not all of them, but most European countries, it's very tough. Not in England. I know England is the only one that does actually have a lot of Amex coverage, but a lot of the, like Spain, Portugal, whatever, France, all those places, it's a lot harder to find places that accept Amex. So if you are getting one of these cards for traveling, then you want to go with the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card, because it just doesn't make sense to get this card for the no foreign transaction fee and then not be able to use it when you are traveling, right? So that defeats the whole purpose. So if you are using it for, making a lot of business purchases or stuff like that, then that's fine. But if you're just traveling a lot to the United States or something like that, that's fine too. But if you are also going other places, that's something to be cognizant of, okay? But let's take a look at some of the coverages they have. So for coverages, they both are very well protected, mostly because they're both geared towards travel, of course. One of them is literally called Passport, so that would make sense. But yeah, they have a lot of coverages, right? So the only big one that's missing for the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card is the mobile device insurance. They don't have that here, but the Gold Amex does. Other than that, they do cover most of the same things, and I'm just trying to see if there's any big differences that we can go over. There's not really. It's mostly the same numbers over and over again. Yeah, it's mostly the same numbers. But they do cover pretty much everything, like lost or stolen baggage, baggage delay, car rental damage and theft, travel accident, extended warranty. This is a very key one. And look at this, 25 days. That's pretty good, right? There are some cards that give you 31, but the standard rate is 15. So giving it a little bit more than that, pretty nice to have. And yeah, they have very good coverages for a lot of these, right? So good stuff. And of course, this is the big showstopper, no foreign transaction fee. This is the main reason why so many people sign up for these cards and why these cards are so popular, particularly out of all the Scotiabank cards. They also have some concierge service and stuff like that, which is nice to have. There is some airport lounge access with the Scotiabank Passport card. So yes, you are paying about $30 a year more, but hey, that's a pretty good trade. For $30, getting some 6 free complimentary visits, that's pretty good. Again, Dragon Pass isn't the best network of airport lounges out there, but it's still all right. It still has some options out there. And again, let me know in the comments down below if you want me to make a video about comparing all the different airport lounge programs. But So that one is still pretty good as well. There is a discount on Priority Pass membership if you have the Scotiabank Gold American Express card, but those are pretty expensive, right? So that's another probably $100 or $200 depending on what tier you want to sign up for, even at the discounted prices, right? So even though you do have the option of getting Priority Pass at a discounted amount, that's still quite a bit more money to invest into getting that program. Now, as far as the minimum income requirements, obviously the Scotiabank American Express card is much easier to get. I mean, I think the vast majority of people should be able to, qualify for this easily. And Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card, it's not the worst, right? It's 60,000 minimum personal income, 100,000 household income, either or, right? So it's not the 8150 that we see on some of these cards that are trying to be very exclusive, but it is still some barrier that maybe doesn't allow everyone to get it. So also keep that in mind as well. Now let's take a look at the points that you get with these cards. So with the Gold American Express card, you get 6 Scene+ points for every dollar you spend at one of these partners, 5 points for dining, food delivery, grocery store, all that stuff, 5 points for every dollar you spent in entertainment and stuff like that, 3 Scene points for every dollar you spent on gas and transit within Canada. So a lot of these are within Canada. That's a very key point to take a look at here. 3 points for every dollar you spent on streaming services in Canada, and also 1 point for every other dollar that you spent. Now, there's also some additional benefits like more Scene points, up to 4 Scene points per dollar spent on hotel bookings, car rentals, and stuff if you do it with Scene+ travel, which from what I've seen, I haven't really looked into it too deeply, but it's not the best travel program out there. But I mean, I'm sure if you look at it from time to time, you might be able to find a deal here and there. So maybe that could be valuable from time to time. But on the other hand, what does the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card get you? They get you 3 points for every dollar spent on those partners, 2 points for every dollar spent at groceries, dining, entertainment, stuff like that. But again, as you can see, at least it doesn't say it here, it's not limited to Canada the same way that it is with the Scotiabank Gold American Express card. And then you also have 1 Scene point for every dollar spent on everything else, and you have the same up to 4 Scene points on booking travel with the Scene+ travel program. Now, as far as how much these points are worth, they're basically worth about 1 cent per point. Particularly, you can redeem them towards either movie tickets with Cineplex. It will be worth that. If you go for travel and stuff like that, it will be worth that. So basically, we can just write it off as 1 cent per point is the value of each of the points. So overall, you do get some more points with the Scotiabank Gold American Express card, but if that's something that you're looking into, you got to make sure that you're not traveling to all those countries that maybe don't accept Amex as much, right? So if you are only going to the United States and you really don't care about the lounge access that you get with the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card, then for your particular situation, it might be better to go with the Gold American Express card. But for most others, I would think this is just a much better value proposition, even though you get a little bit less points per dollar spent. But to be honest, none of these points are that great anyways. I mean, I know that you get 5 points per dollar spent on dining, food delivery, and stuff like that, but the points are much weaker than something like a Cobalt card, for example, right? The Cobalt card, you have the option to transfer them to a lot of different partners, and you have the ability to redeem them at a very high rate, maybe 2 cents per point, maybe in some cases even higher than that, right? So that's the value of the Cobalt card. Whereas here, you have to spend it with the Scene+ program. And when you do that, it's basically just 1 cent per point. So it's a little bit less valuable in that sense, but it is more, to be fair. So if all else is equal, yeah, you can go for the Gold American Express card. But if you do travel a lot internationally, if you do want some airport lounge access, particularly given that it's 6 complimentary visits per year as well, then in that sense, you would want to look at the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card if you have the minimum income requirements, that is. So those are the 2 options that you have there. And based on what we talked about, I think it's pretty clear that this card needs to be ranked higher, at least 1 tier above the Scotiabank Gold American Express card. So this card is definitely good. It's not that I don't like the card. It's just that comparatively, I think I have to put it a little bit lower than the Passport card. So the Passport card for me goes into A. Again, let's just scroll up here. There we go. So Passport card goes into A. I'd probably put it, it's very tough between the WestJet. I'd probably put it slightly ahead of WestJet because not everyone, I don't think, would want to fly with WestJet on a regular basis, but really there's not a lot between. These cards are all very good, right? So I think all three of these are quite a bit ahead of this one, because this one is nice to have, but it's not that great, especially if you have the Rogers card. I mean, you don't really need that card, but they are very close to each other. They're all very, very good cards. And then we have the Scotiabank Gold American Express card, which to me, it goes one tier below the Scotiabank Passport card, but for some people, it could be worth it, right? So I'm going to put it right below probably the Neo Cathay, maybe even the Neo World Elite. It's a tough one. Maybe I'll just actually put it slightly above Neo Cathay, because I know this card is not for everyone, and same with probably the World Elite. So I'll probably put it right there. I think that looks about right. And of course, there's two other Scotiabank Simplii American Express cards that we're going to talk about. So let's take a look at those. So here we are with the other two Scotiabank Amex cards, and one, as you will see in a second, is a no-fee version, and the other one is the much more expensive version. So let's take a look at how they compare against the other card that we talked about. But they are both, again, they're offering very good rebates on both of these cards right now. So the Scotiabank Amex card, the regular version, you would get a $55 cash rebate if you sign up for this card, again, with the link down in the description below from Finley Wealth. And also for the Scotiabank Platinum Amex card, you would get $200 cash back, which is, all again, very good to see. But how do they compare? Again, like I mentioned, the regular version has no annual fee. The Scotiabank Platinum Amex card has a $400 annual fee, so quite a bit. So we would expect it to offer quite a bit more compared to the gold version. But what they offer, so the Scotiabank Amex card, it does have mobile device insurance for $500, so it's a little bit lower, but at least it has something, right? So that's good to see. It is a no-fee card, so for a no-fee card, that's actually pretty good. It doesn't have too many other coverages here, though, but the Scotiabank Platinum Amex card, since it is the most expensive version, you really do want to see a ton of coverages, right? So we got the mobile device insurance at $1,000. Nice to see. Lost or stolen baggage, baggage delay, car rental damage, travel accident, all that stuff. Emergency medical, out of province medical insurance is up to 31 days. That's pretty nice. So not just the standard 15 days or the 20 or whatever. 31, full month. Very nice to see. Trip cancellation, trip interruption, and flight delay as well. Very good. So the coverages are very good and on point. Let's take a look at, we have the no foreign transaction fees again with the Scotiabank Platinum Amex card, but not with the regular version, right? So the gold and the platinum versions get you the no foreign transaction fee, but not the regular, which is a common misconception. Some people think, oh, why not just get the regular version? They don't actually have that on there, which is unfortunate. I almost wish they had something there, would be like a lower, at least, foreign transaction fees, and that would give us something to really like compare with, right? Like, okay, would it be worth getting the no fee version where you still pay some fee but it's less fee, but they just don't have any option on that, which is a shame. So my feedback to Scotiabank would be that for this card, in order to make it a little bit more valuable, maybe lower the foreign transaction fee. So still have it, because I understand it's a free-to-own card, so you can't remove it entirely, but maybe lower it at least a little bit and have that as a feature. You have airport lounge access with the Platinum Scotiabank Amex card, and you have it for both Priority Pass and Plaza Premium at 10 visits per program. So that's pretty good. And if you have a secondary card that you sign up with your Scotiabank Amex Platinum card, you get another 4. So that's pretty good. That's basically a ton of visits. So for most people, that would basically be the same as unlimited. So it's not bad, but the only issue is that, it's still not as good as something like a Platinum card, because with that, not only is it unlimited, but you have access to so many airport lounges. Plaza Premium, I'm not the biggest fan. Priority Pass is pretty good, though. Priority Pass does give you a lot of good options, but with Priority Pass specifically, there are some lounges, this is something to keep in mind. For example, the Chase Lounge is one example of this, where you would get access to those lounges, but for those specific lounges or those specific networks, it's once a year. So for example, the Chase Lounge that I went to in New York, that one, they told me, okay, if you come to this lounge, then you can't go to any other Chase Lounge for the rest of the year, even though you have a Priority Pass. And I have a Platinum card, right? So I have the Platinum card that has the best version of Priority Pass. And that one still was like, okay, but for Chase specifically, you can only go to this one for the whole year. And not any other Chase lounges anywhere else. So just something to keep in mind with Priority Pass. They do have some of those weird things in there. But generally, Priority Pass is pretty good. I would say probably after Amex, Priority Pass is probably the best network. And then after that, probably Dragon Pass, then probably Plaza Premium. But given that you have two different networks here, that's pretty good actually. Because if you go to an airport that doesn't have one, maybe it has the other one. So that could be able to cover a lot. And Plaza Premium, there's a lot of Plaza Premium lounges in particularly in Canada, but even in US there's quite a bit of them as well. Maybe not as much actually, but it can help out, like maybe here and there it could substitute for the Priority Pass ones. But let's take a look at some other stuff. So the interest rates are also lower on the Scotiabank Platinum Amex card, but really if you're spending $400 on a card, you really shouldn't be carrying a balance. You should make sure you're always paying off your card on time and in full. So I don't really pay too much attention to the rates there. But again, the minimum income requirements are very easy to get to. Again, it's very similar to the other Scotiabank Amex card, the Gold card. It's just $12,000 a year, which again, for most people, should be no problem. Let's take a look at the rewards that you get, right? So with the Platinum Amex card, you get 2 scene points for every dollar spent on everything, right? So that would be good if it wasn't for the $400 annual fee. If this was like a free-to-own card, that's pretty good, right? Because it's basically 2% value. It's still not the same as Rogers, but for someone who maybe doesn't have one of those phone plans or internet plans or whatever, for them it would make sense to like get something else that offers something like this. But since it's a $400 card, it's not really enough. I mean, you do want a little bit more there, right? And I understand that you want to get it for the features, but if you want to get this card for the features, particularly the feature of no foreign transaction fee, you can get the Gold version. If you want to get it for the airport lounges, I mean, I suppose that's the weird part about this card, is that if you specifically want it for the lounges and to have the no foreign transaction fee, maybe for some people that could work. But again, the issue with that is that if you travel internationally, it gets a little dicey again, because there aren't too many Plaza Premium lounges internationally. Priority Pass has some, but not a huge coverage. So it gets a little dicey again. So it's very dependent. For some people, I could see this being worth it, but not too many people, if that makes sense. But let's see what points you get with this one. So for the partners of Scene Plus, these ones specifically, you get 3 points per every dollar spent for restaurants, foods, bars, groceries, whatever. For all that stuff, you get 2 points per dollar spent, 2 points per dollar spent on entertainment, gas, daily transit, streaming services, and then 1 scene point per dollar spent on everything else. And again, you have the same for both of them. You have the up to 4 scene points per dollar spent on booking travel with the Scene Plus travel program. So again, and of course, each point is worth about 1 cent. So overall, I'm not a big fan of either one, to be honest. So the regular version to me, it just doesn't make sense, because the biggest selling point of the Scotiabank Amex cards are the no foreign transaction fee. So it doesn't have that. It doesn't even have reduced foreign transaction fee. So I just don't really know who this card is really for. I don't really understand. I mean, I guess for just points, maybe. I don't really understand. So this card probably goes to C for me, because I just don't understand the point of it. Whereas for... and again, I want to say this as well. So I know it's a no fee card and it gets you maybe some points, but a lot of these you can find better options, right? So if you're not getting the Rogers card, which could get you, if you have those plans, already 3% basically value back. It's 2% cash back, but if you redeem it correctly, it's 3% value back on everything that you spend. But even if you put that aside, right? So you had the BMO Cashback Mastercard that gets you 3% back on groceries, no fee. That's very easy. So the whole grocery thing. There's another card we're going to talk about very soon that has no annual fee, that gets you 4% cash back at restaurants, bars, coffee shops. So this whole 2 points per dollar spent at restaurants, bars, coffee shops. Again, it's not anything that crazy. I mean, there's definitely better cards out there for no fee that can get you a lot more. So overall, I just don't know who this card is for. I'd say probably an easy C for me. But Scotiabank Platinum Amex card is a bit tougher. I don't think you can quite put it in C, because I can see it being worth it for some people. But I do like the Gold version better. And of course, again, it does have the same issue as the Gold one, which if you're traveling internationally a lot, you may not even be able to use the no foreign transaction fee, because you may not be able to use Amex at a lot of places you go. So that's not great either. But Overall, I'm going to put it slightly below the gold version, the platinum one, because at least you have the airport lounges and stuff like that. So I'll probably put it here, maybe slightly above the CIBC or maybe slightly below CIBC. That's actually a tough call. I'll put it here for now, but you know, it's not too big of a difference between these ones. Maybe just because of the no foreign transaction fee, I'll put it here above them. But it is, in my opinion, lower than the gold and definitely lower than the passport, in my opinion. And for the regular version, I'd probably put it somewhere around here. This one's a tough one. Probably below the RBC. Was it? Nah, not below the RBC ones. I'll put it here, below Neo probably. Even that's tough because I know Neo, like, I'll put it here. I'm just gonna commit with that, and yeah, I should be happy with that. But yeah, and with that said, there's one more scene card that we're gonna get to, and I have lots of stories about that one. And then we have the Scotia Momentum card. So let's get into those. Now, the Scotiabank Scene Plus Visa card is also one of the earliest cards I had. It's probably my I think the third card I ever had. So the first card I ever had was the CIBC card that I went over, the Aventura one. Not the best card out there. The second card I had was the Simplii Cash, the Amex Simplii Cash, the no fee version. That was my first Amex card and the second credit card I ever had. The third credit card I ever had was the Scotiabank Scene Plus Visa card. And at the time, it was offering quite a bit, actually. It was like, I'm a big movie fan, and anytime you went to movie theaters, it would give you 5 scene points per dollar spent, which was pretty nice, actually, and some other points as well. And I've talked about this before on my channel. If you're a long-time viewer, you know this. They did some crazy things with the sign-up bonus. I got the sign-up bonus. They didn't give it to me for like almost a year. I had to email them and write to them multiple times. And after I finally made a video, there's actually an old video on my channel you might be able to find where I talk about this. And as soon as I made a video about like these guys, they're not giving me the sign-up bonus, I don't know what's going on, they might do the same to you, beware. As soon as I made that video, they not only gave me the sign-up bonus, but they gave double. So they gave it to me and then they gave it to me again and I said, oh, just to say we're sorry, here we're giving it to you again. So I don't know if they saw my video. I like to think they saw my video. It could just be a random coincidence, but that was funny. But overall, the point I want to make with this card is that it got nerfed sometime along the way. It used to give 5 scene points every dollar spent at movie theaters and some other stuff, but right now it's actually giving very low points. So it's like 2 points, 1 point, stuff like that. So it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. So the only reason I've kept it open is because it's free to own and I don't want to hurt my credit score. Otherwise, I would have canceled this card long ago, because very similar to the first card I ever had, it's not that good. At least not anymore. At least at the time when I got it, this one was actually decent, but now not really. But hey, if you are looking to get this card, which I wouldn't recommend, but if for some reason you want to get it, there is a cash rebate being offered by Family Wealth of $75, which is a pretty good rebate actually for a no fee card, until the end of the month. So if you're looking to get it for some reason, you could do that as well. Link in the description below, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's no annual fee with this card, but you do get some scene points. So you get 2 points per dollar spent at the partners over here. You do get another 2 points at these locations as well. 2 points per dollar spent at Simplex Theaters or on simplex.com, which that's pretty low, honestly. It was 5 points per dollar spent. Those were the days. And not only was it 5 points per dollar spent, but you could actually redeem the points towards movies for a much better rate than 1 cent per point. And only for movies, right? So for other stuff, for travel and stuff, it was 1 cent per point. But for movies, just a couple years ago, it was actually quite a bit better. It was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, probably like 1.5 or 2 or something like that. But it was a great thing if you were a moviegoer. But yeah, it's just not that good. I understand that maybe for some people it still might be worth it, but the way I look at it is that it used to be so much better. What is this? This is a joke. So I don't love these numbers. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this card. I have a personal vendetta against this card, especially after the way they treated me with the sign-up bonus. I got the sign-up bonus. They just didn't give it to me for almost a year. And no matter how many times I emailed them, called them, I said, hey guys, I think you messed up here. I think you didn't give me my sign-up bonus. So yeah, Scotiabank, that is not any rebates or anything like that. But yeah, Scotiabank was being really weird with the sign-up bonus at the time. Hopefully they've resolved all those issues, but yeah, it just left a bad taste in my mouth, and the fact that they've nerfed the card. So maybe it's personal bias. Maybe some of you guys like this card. I totally get it. But for me, don't like that card. Get it out of here. Scotia Momentum Mastercard. So let me actually put this on the tier list right away, and I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna dump this right here. It's probably not worth being in D, but hey, can you really blame me after what they did with the stuff they pulled against me? So I don't care. I'm gonna put this one in D out of vendetta. I'm just kidding. It's actually not a good card, but. Scotia Momentum Mastercard, right? So again, a free-to-own card. It does give you 1% back on gas, groceries, drugstores, and recurring payments. And the recurring payments is the key factor with the Momentum cards, right? We're going to get into them in a second. So most Momentum cards are Visa cards. This one is the only one that's a Mastercard. And I want to go over the Mastercard first so you kind of have an idea of what this one is. And then we're going to go over the Visa cards. And for each of them, we're going to see how much it gets better and better and better. And we're going to talk about those. So the Momentum cards are also very good opportunities, especially if you are someone who pays rent, and we'll get into that in a second. But this card, I wouldn't recommend it too much. So it's nice that it is a MasterCard, but again, very low cashback rates, 0.5% on all other purchases, just very low. That's not good. 1% back again on these, and there are cards that give you 1.25% back on everything, right? Like this free-to-own Amex Simpli Cash card. So yeah, there's just no reason anyone should get this card either. I would probably put this in D as well. Yeah, probably somewhere around here, maybe slightly below Scene Plus, because at least Scene Plus get you some points. Some categories it got you 2 points or stuff like that. But this one is even lower. So with that said, let's get into the good stuff. Let's get into the Visa Momentum cards. So here we have the Scotia Momentum no-fee Visa card and Scotia Momentum Visa card, right? So as you can see, they both look exactly the same, which was an issue when I was making a tier list, because I had to basically put the same card here twice. So I just put it once. So I'm going to combine these two cards together because we can only represent it once on here. Otherwise, it would just be confusing. And we'd have two images that look exactly the same. And when I rank them, it's hard to tell which one is which, right? So for that reason, I just decided to combine these two together. So pay attention here. Basically, one has no fee and one has a little bit of a fee, like $40 a year, right? And again, there is cashbacks being offered or cash rebates being offered from Finley Wealth on both of these. Again, link in the description down below if you want to get any of these cards. So you also get the rebate as well. But there's not a lot of coverages with these cards. Again, the key with the Scotia Momentum cards are the recurring payments cashback that you get. So what do you get with these ones, right? With the no fee and the $40 a year version. So the no fee, again, it's very low, basically the same as the MasterCard. So again, the no fee version is not good. So no fee version will go right next to where the MasterCard was. So just so you guys know that, right? So if I had a separate one for the no fee card, it would go right here next to the MasterCard version. But what about the $40 a year version? Now this one is a little bit better, right? So for $40 a year, which is very affordable, that's very low. Like most other cards that give you a lot of cash back, like a Simple Cash Preferred, stuff like that, they are over $100 a year. So at $40 a year, that's very affordable. That's not a big deal. You do get 2% cash back on gas, groceries, drugstores, and recurring payments, right? So the recurring payments one is being key. We'll go over why you can take advantage of that and get a lot of cash back in a second, specifically with rent. But I do want to pull up the other version of the card. So we saw what the no fee version gets you. I just wanted to go over that very quickly. Not great, very low compared to this card, which is almost no fee. It's only $40 a year. So no one should really go for this card over the $40 version because it's just the numbers are so low. And honestly, no one should go for the no fee version anyways, in my opinion. So just forget about that. I know they offer rebates, but they're better cards. So don't go on the no fee cards. But let's keep this one here, the Scotia Momentum Visa card, and let me bring up the other version that's even more premium. So here we have it. We have the Scotia Momentum Visa card, which is the $40 a year version. And we also have the Scotia Momentum Visa Infinite card, which is $120 a year. So it's still very affordable. It's the same as a Simpli Cash Preferred, for example. And right now, look at this. They're offering a $125 rebate on this at Finley Wealth. Again, link it in the description down below if you want to get that offer. And it's $125 until the end of the month, until the March. After that, I think it goes down to 100, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. But for now, until the end of the month, it's a little bit higher. But let's go over what these two get you. So I will go over the coverages, but you can already see coverages are so much more with the $120 a year version. But this is the key, right? So for the first year as well, by the way, the fee is waived on the Scotia Momentum Visa Infinite Card. So not only do you not pay the fee for the first year as a part of your sign-up bonus, you also get $125 in rebates from Finley Wealth if you use the link down below. So basically, if you get this card, instead of paying $40 a year, for the first year, you don't pay anything, you get $125 back. So which means that when you pay the $120 in the second year, you basically still are $5 up in the first 2 years, right? So for the first 2 years, you're basically not paying anything, which is pretty good, but pretty cool. But why is this one better? But first of all, keep in mind that you do need an income requirement of $60,000 personally or $100,000 household. So make sure you do have that if you want to go for this card. Again, it's not the highest. It's not like 80, 150 like a lot of cards have, but it could maybe restrict some people from getting access to it. But what does this card get you? So this card gets you 4% cash back on groceries, which is cool, but other cards like Simplii Cash Preferred have that, so it's not that big of a shocker. But this is the key one: 4% cash back on recurring payments. And you might be saying, what's the point of recurring payments? I'll get into it in a second with you. 2% cash back on gas daily transit, which is okay, that's fine, not that big a deal. A 1% cash back on everything else. Again, it's not that amazing, but it's all right, I guess. But let's talk about the big feature: 4% back on recurring payments. If you are a renter, if you rent the place that you live, what you can do is you can use the service known as Chexi. Now, I made a full video on this. I can leave a link to it up here if you guys want to check that out. But there's a service called Chexi, which enables you to pay your rent with a credit card. And it doesn't matter whether the place that you're renting from accepts credit cards or not, because you pay Chexi with your credit card and they pay your landlord with cash, right? So it's a very good service. It does cost you like a 1% fee or something like that. Again, I'll go into all the details on that video. It's a little bit about a year old, that video, but all the numbers still work the same way. So they do ask you for a little bit of a fee, but if you use this card, you would get a lot more on the cashback than the fee that you're paying for that service. So, for example, let's say it's 2%, right? If you use, and let's say your rent is $2,000 a month, you would use your Momentum card to pay your rent through Chexi, right? So you're paying $2,000 for the rent. 2% of that would be $40, so you paid them $40 through your card, but guess what? You get $80 in cash back. So right there, you profited $40. Now, it might be slightly different. I don't remember the exact number. In fact, let me look up the number so I can give you the exact information. Here it is. So for Canadian Visas and Amexes, it is 1.75%, the fee that they charge you. So basically, and they even say it right here, right? They say get 4% cash back basically through the Scotia Momentum Visa card, right? So pay your rent with credit card to earn up to 4% cash back. So if you get the Scotia Momentum Visa Infinite Card specifically, you pay your rent through Chexi. Let's say it's $2,000 or whatever the number is. You have to pay 1.75% to Chexi, so that will be $35. But you get $80 in cash back every month, right? So you're basically making $45 for free. So if you are someone who rents, this is just a no-brainer to get this card. And specifically given, like if you had to pay some fee every year, then you have some stuff to consider. For the first year, the fee is waived. And you're also getting another $125 cash rebate, which basically pays for the second year as well. So the first 2 years, you don't even really pay any fees. So it's just a great card to have if you rent specifically. If you don't, then it does depend on is like you have big car payment or something like that. It could still make sense with some of those as well, but it's not as huge. But if you are specifically renting, because rent is such a huge cost for most people, and it's a cost that you have to pay anyways, then there's an opportunity to make so much back with the cashback that this card offers. So this is a big one. Again, I will leave a link to that video up here as well if you want to check out the video where I go over how Chexi works exactly. But I would definitely recommend taking it. If you are someone who rents, definitely take advantage of this rebate offer. I don't know what the normal is. It might be 50 or 100. I don't know what the normal rate is, but right now they're giving you even more at 125, which is pretty nice. So make sure to take advantage of that. Make sure to get the card. Make sure you start doing this renting process so you can make a lot of money back. Now, keep in mind that it's up to $1,000 cash back per year. So that's the only thing to keep in mind. right? So if you do exceed that, it's going to go back down to, I believe 1%. So if your rent is a lot, like if you rent, I don't know, let's say a big number, let's say $6,000, right? So $6,000 if you're spending or something like that, or let's say $10,000, whatever, a big number, right? It might tap out at some point. So just do a quick calculation of that. And again, I go over that in my video about how CheckC works. But if I'm just gonna tell you quickly, 4% maximum at $1,000. That means that if you spend more than $25,000 a year on your rent, then at that point you're going to exceed the $1,000 cashback yearly amount that you're allowed, basically. So if you do spend, that would be about like $2,200 to $2,300 a year, a month or more. You may be able to do it and profit on it for the first couple of months, or for the first 6 months or 10 months or whatever. So just do a quick calculation of that, right? So if for example, if your monthly rent is $5,000, then that means that after 5 months, you've got the entire $1,000 back in the cashback that you're allowed. So after the first 5 months, you want to make sure after that you're paying rent for the next 7 months. So that's something to be cognizant of, right? So it's a little bit to keep in mind, but it's worth it. I mean, it's $1,000 free cash back that you're getting every year. I think that's pretty worth it. And yes, you have to pay a little bit of it in fees, but that's still like what, $500, $600, $700 that you're getting back for free every year. And you also have the card, which you can use for all these other stuff, right? So you also get the card. You have coverages in all these categories. You have mobile device insurance, triple cancellation, triple interruption, loss of stolen baggage, all that stuff. You also getting 4% back on groceries. You do get 2% back on gas and transit, which is not like that crazy, but it's still something. But yeah, so that very good opportunity to get a card that can get you a ton of cash back every year, particularly on rent. So if you're someone who rents, this is definitely one to go with. Now, of course, the Momentum card, which was $40 a year, it still gets you 2% back on recurring payments, but as you can see, it's not that big a deal, right? So if you're paying 1.75% to CheckC and you're getting 2% back, you're still profiting, but it's not that huge, right? So it probably wouldn't be worth it. So this card, even though it looks good, like it looks like, oh, for $40, you're getting something very close, the math actually doesn't quite work out. So I would say the no fee version of that card, definitely don't go with that. This version, the Scotia Momentum Visa card, even though it looks good, it doesn't really pan out as good as, you know, the Momentum Visa Infinite card does. So I would suggest this card, the Scotia Momentum Visa Infinite card, not the Momentum Visa card, not the free-to-own Momentum Visa card. This one, the Scotia Momentum Visa Infinite card, and make sure you get the high cashback rate, and also for the first year, make sure your fee is waived, and you're cooking, and you're getting a ton of cashback. Particularly if you rent or if you have like a huge car payment or something like that, you can get a ton of cash back very easily. So without further ado, we're going to rank these. So the regular Momentum is a little bit better. It probably goes somewhere in C. I'll put it like here, right after the Aeroplan CIBC Cards. But the Visa Infinite Momentum goes right up there in A. It's absolutely amazing. Now I'll put it, it's a tough one. Honestly, I might just put it at the beginning of A. You know what? I'm going to put it in S. And the reason for that is because for people who this card is worth it, it's a must-have. Like if you are paying rent, then there's no reason why you wouldn't have this card. So for that reason, it just has to go to S. So if it's a card that you must have, then I think that just has to go to S. So yeah, I'm going to put it in S. I actually didn't expect to put it in S. I was thinking about putting it in A, but the more I think about it on the spot, it just makes sense. Why would it not go to us, right? Like if you already have a rent payment or a huge car payment, it's just a must get. So definitely recommend this card. Great card. Now, next up, we have the Simplii Financial Visa card. This is a great card. I love this card. This was like I think either the third or the fourth, I think the fourth card I ever got or something like that. But absolutely amazing card. No fee. Gets you 4% back on restaurants, bars, and coffee shops. And again, it's a no fee card. So if you don't use it, it's fine. Right? So it's absolutely amazing. Now, since I've got the Cobalt card, I don't use it as much because the Cobalt card I can also use for a lot of those. So even though previously I ranked this in S, I do think with reflection, I probably should put it just in A. And the reason for that is because I think a much better combo is to have something like the Cobalt plus a Rogers, because what that would get you is 3% cashback on everything, but then on particularly restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and groceries, you get 5 points per dollar spend, which you can spend at, like, let's say if you can spend at 2 cents per point, that'll be 10% value back on all those, right? And one of them is free to own. So that's an amazing pairing. Even though I used to previously think, hey, Rogers and Simplii Financial Visa card, that would be great pairing. This is an even better pairing. And the good thing about it is that one of them is not an Amex card. So if you ever are in a situation where, you know, you can't use Amex in a particular merchant, you can use your Rogers card, right? I think the Simplii Financial Visa card is a much better pairing option with the Amex Simpli Cash Preferred. And the reason for that is because this card gets you 4% back on gas and groceries, and then this card can get you 4% back on restaurant, bars, and coffee shops. And then, of course, Simpli Cash Preferred gets you 2% back on everything else. So in that sense, it might make more sense to pair these two up. And again, you have one Amex card and one non-Amex card, right? So that's the way I'm thinking about it. You could also, of course, do Rogers and Simplii Financial Visa card together, but I think that's a missed opportunity to just go for Cobalt, right? To get the Rogers and the Cobalt. That's the way I would look at it. So those are definitely the 3 best pairings I would think of. Me, myself, I don't have the Rogers card because I don't have Rogers, Fido, or Shaw. If I did, I would have already had it, of course. But because I don't, I have the Cobalt card, I have the Platinum card, I have the Simpli Cash Preferred, and the Simplii Financial Visa card. And of course, I have those other couple ones that I mentioned as well, but I rarely use those other ones. These are the 4 that I use personally on a day-to-day basis. And I have the BMO cashback grocery card as well, but I don't use that one that often. But yeah, those are the pairings I would suggest. Rogers or World Elite, if you have the minimum income requirement, plus Cobalt, or Simplii Financial Visa plus the Amex Simpli Cash Preferred if you're just looking for straight cashback and you don't want to, accumulate points for travel because maybe you don't travel a lot or whatever the case is. Next up, we have the Tangerine Cards, and I'll just cut right to the chase. The Tangerine Cards look very good, but really when you get into it, it's not neither are that great an option, particularly after the Rogers cards came out. So a couple years ago, the Rogers cards weren't around or weren't offering anywhere near as much, I should say, because there was a different version of them out there a couple years ago, but it wasn't nearly as good. But since the Rogers card has become so good, the Tangerine cards just don't make any sense to me. So I know they have rated them higher here, but I don't really love them myself. They do offer a huge rebate on them, particularly given that they're both free-to-own cards. So that's pretty impressive to see. They both offer a $125 rebate. Again, link in the description down below if you want to get that rebate, if you want to sign up for these cards. So that's a big rebate that they're offering. But other than that, I'm just not a big fan of these cards. And again, even though the rebate is huge, I wouldn't recommend it. Unless you just really want to get it for some reason, you've always wanted to get it, in that case, all the power to you. For most other people, I would stick to some of the other cards that we talked about. Here, so what do they offer, right? So they offer not that many coverages. The Tangerine World Mastercard does get you mobile device insurance and also some car rental coverages. And of course, in order to get the World Mastercard, you guys know the drill. You have to have a higher income requirement, right? So it's $60,000 personal income or $100,000 household income. Again, not the highest, but does cut off some people for sure. But yeah, so you have the Dragon Pass, but no complimentary visits. So not that great, but I mean, it is a free-to-own card, so it's not that big a deal. But let's take a look at the cashback situation. So you get 2% back with the Tangerine Money Back card on 2 categories of your choice. So the categories you could choose from are stuff like groceries or transit or gas or whatever else, right? So those categories that we usually talk about. You could choose 2 of them to get 2% back on those, and then you get 0.5% back on everything else. Now again, when you have something like the Rogers card that can get you 2% cash back on everything, and if you spend it correctly, that's basically like getting 3% cash back on everything. It just doesn't make sense to have this. Like, why would I get 2% on 2 categories of my choice? Okay, but I can get 3% on everything. So, not good. So this card probably was somewhere in the middle, like in the past, and I don't know where I ranked it in my last video. This time around, just looking at it, it just smells like D to me, because I don't understand what the use of it would be. Maybe I'll be nice and put it low C, because again, it's not the worst of the worst out there, but Yeah, it's not great. The Tangerine World Mastercard, again, you get 2% on 2 categories. And yes, with both of them, if you have a Tangerine savings account, you get 2% on 3 categories, which, oh yeah, amazing. Or I could get 3% back on everything. So yeah. Tangerine really needs to step up with these cards. So these cards, again, like I said, they weren't that bad. They were like kind of middling a couple years ago, a little while ago. And again, I don't remember how I ranked them about a year ago. Maybe I was nicer to them. But yeah, just nowadays, it feels like they've stayed very stagnant for a very long time. I would like them to give 2% back on everything. Or if they really want to step up to really challenge Rogers, give 3% back on everything. That would be insane. That would make this card the best card. That's not going to happen because that's probably too much. And they probably don't have the budget for it. But I don't know. I don't know why anyone would sign up for this over something like the Rogers card or so many of the other cards I went over, the Simplii Visa card or whatever, right? So there's so many other cards that are much better. Not a big fan of these cards. I won't be too mean. I'll put them in like a low C, maybe above the Desjardins cards, because the Desjardins cards are kind of not so great either. Actually, come to think of it, maybe they could probably go above some of these other ones too. Oh, it's a tough one. That's a lot of bad cards. Just looking at them, I'm thinking, which one? I can't pick which one is worse. But I'll just put them here, above the Desjardins cards, because they're definitely... Actually, are they even better than this one? Because this Desjardins card wasn't that bad, I remember. Whatever. I'm not going to split hairs too much here, but you guys get the point. It's definitely somewhere in there. Not great. Not a big fan of the cards. On to the next. Now we're going to get into the TD cards, and TD has a couple of very attractive looking Aeroplan cards. So we're going to go over those. So we have the TD Aeroplan Visa Platinum Card, which is the $90 a year version to own, and the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite Card, which is the $140 version to own. They're both okay. This one is very popular, the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite Card specifically. There's a more expensive version, which we'll go over in a second as well, but this one is very popular, and we're going to go over why that is in a second. But they both offer some coverages. Not too many. They don't have, like, the Platinum Card doesn't have mobile device insurance, whereas the Visa Infinite Card does. The Platinum Card doesn't have emergency out-of-promise medical insurance, which is weird. I mean, that seems like a good thing to cover. But the Visa Infinite Card does for 21 days. That's nice to see. And some other ones, trip cancellation, trip interruption, stuff like that. But what these cards get you is a bunch of stuff. So the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite Card is not too expensive, but it does get you some of those important Air Canada privileges, such as free first check bag every time up to 8 guests, right? So similar to the WestJet card, where we talked about how valuable this is. If you just like travel once with, let's say, 2 other people, that's like probably $30-40 per checked bag going there, and $30-40 per checked bag coming back. That's already like over $100, maybe over $200, right? So that's a huge value proposition. There's Nexus program rebates. There's some other stuff, private clubs or whatever. I don't know how valuable those are. I haven't had this card myself, so can't really speak to those, but there are some definitely good features here. And for the first year, the fee is waived on both of them. So that's nice to see. And currently, I know that Finley Wealth isn't offering any rebates, but in the future, they said that they might be able to. So keep your eyes on that if you're looking to get any of these cards. Again, I will always refresh the description down below to include all the latest offers. But right now, there's no rebates on them from Finley Wealth, but they do at least waive the first year fee. The Platinum version doesn't have a minimum income requirements. The Visa Infinite Card does have minimum 60,000 personal, minimum 100,000 or minimum 100,000 household. They do get you 1.5 Aeroplan points per dollar spent on gas, groceries, Air Canada, and 1 Aeroplan point on everything else. Again, as we talked, Aeroplan points, again, they can be worth something like 1.5 cents to 2 cents, something like that. Depends on how you redeem them and which deals you get. But if you are redeeming them correctly and on good deals, you could get quite a bit of value. So that's the good thing about the Aeroplan program. But overall, neither of them are that crazy, but if you are a frequent Air Canada flyer, I can definitely see why this feature would be so worth it, particularly for this low fee, right? So the more expensive version also has very good features, but that one's more expensive. This one's only $140 a year to own, so that's less than Cobalt, right? So it could be worth it for some people, not every single person, but there are definitely people who might look at this and say, you know what, that's pretty good. And there's also some status upgrades as well with Air Canada. So there's like, oh, you can get to like qualifying mile status, or status qualifying miles, or whatever it's called, faster. So you can get certain privileges like free upgrades and stuff like that with the Aeroplan program. So if you are someone who collects Aeroplan points, that might be something you want to take into account as well. But yeah, those are basically the biggest features of these cards. But let's take a look at the more expensive version. So here we have the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite Privilege card. It does cost you $600 a year to own, so that's quite a bit. But you do get, of course, a lot of the coverages, but for more. So you get 31 days of, for example, emergency out-of-province medical coverage. You get a higher amount of trip cancellation, trip return option, all that stuff. You do get mobile device insurance at $1,500 instead of just $1,000, and stuff like that. So that's good to see. And of course, there's a lot more status options, status upgrade, stuff like that for Aeroplan if you're collecting Aeroplan points a lot. But you do have, again, the same first checked bag is free for primary card holder and up to 8 guests. That's pretty good to see. You do have the same Nexus rebates and all that stuff, but you also have airport lounge access, right? So you have airport lounge access for all Maple Leaf lounges, unlimited for you and for 1 guest. And you also get 6 complimentary visits a year with the Dragon Pass. So that's pretty good to see. So basically, this card is the same as this card in almost all aspects, with even more benefits for the Aeroplan program, for the status upgrades and stuff like that, and also with airport lounge access. So unlimited Maple Leaf lounge access, which is you can find find them everywhere in Canada pretty much, and also in some places in the United States, not so much outside of North America though. But there is, for international visits, you do have the Dragon Pass where you might be able to find some other lounges, other places. So that's good to see as well. But this is another big one, right? So there's also a companion voucher that comes with this card. That's a big one. So every year you can get 1 pass of between $100 to $600 after spending $25,000 on your card. So if you do spend $25,000 a year on your card anyways, then you would also basically get a free ticket, right? So if you're flying, let's say from Vancouver to Toronto, let's say, and it costs you, let's say, $550, and let's say you're traveling with your partner or with someone else, whoever, you would basically be able to get a free ticket for them, because you have the companion voucher. So that's pretty nice to see. But overall, is it worth it? And also the income requirement is much higher, obviously. But is it really worth it over this one? It's really anyone's guess. You do get higher points on Air Canada specifically, but for the most part, all the other stuff is pretty much the same, right? There's also a little bit more points on dining and stuff like that, but it's not that great. And you do get 1.25 points on everything else instead of just 1 point. So that's nice to see at least. But overall, is it really worth the extra amount? If you can get the voucher, it will be not worth it, right? So if you have the airport lounge access and the voucher, that would be good. But I guess if you are if your minimum income is, or if your income is at least these amounts, I guess you are already spending $25,000 a year on your card anyway. So it might be worth it. So for that reason, I gotta put these cards in a very similar position. And it really depends on whether you spend that much and you have that much income. I'm gonna put them both in B, because I think there's definitely value there for certain people, but not for everyone. I'm probably gonna put it right below, or should I put it above? I'll probably put it slightly above Neo Cathay because it's more encompassing, whereas for Neo Cathay, it's very niche. It's only for Asia travelers, but I'll put them right there. And I think this one is a little bit better because you get all those amazing features for such a low fee compared to the value that you're getting specifically with like the first checked bag and stuff like that. So I'll put those there. And the little bit cheaper version, that one probably goes to C, somewhere around here. Probably somewhere, I'll put it right around the RBC Avions, maybe slightly below those. That looks about right. Now, there's a couple more TD cards that I just have to run through very fast, but none of these are all that good. So there's the Cashback and the Cashback Visa Infinite. The Cashback has no annual fee. The Visa Infinite is $140 a year to own. They don't have too much coverages. The Visa Infinite has a little bit more with like some stuff like mobile device insurance, stuff like that, but not a ton. Even the emergency out-of-province medical insurance is only for 10 days, not even 15, the standard one. For a paid card, you want to see more. There's some stuff here. There's like roadside assistance, which is nice, but other than that, it's not looking that great. The first year is waived, so there's that at least. But you know, both of them have very high personal income requirements for such standard cards, and they don't give you too much cashback. So the Cashback Visa card is pretty low. It's like 1% on some stuff, 0.5% on everything else. Pretty bad. We have the Rogers card that can get us up to 3% if you're getting it correctly and spending it correctly. Whereas the TD Cashback Visa Infinite card gets you 3% cashback on groceries and gas, and on recurring payments. 1% cashback on all other things. So if you want to use it for recurring payments, like paying your rent, similar to what we talked about with the Scotia Momentum, I would stick with Momentum. Not only because you get more cashback, but also, look at this, the maximum was much lower. So I would just stick to the Scotia Momentum for stuff like that, not this card. So overall, not a big fan of these cards. This one's at least not as bad as this one, but it does cost quite a bit. So yeah, the Cashback Visa card probably goes somewhere around here. The paid one, it goes a little bit higher, maybe around the British Airways, something like that. And then we have the TD First Class Travel Visa Infinite card and the TD Platinum Travel Visa card. So the First Class Travel Visa card is $140 a year to own. The Travel Visa card, the Platinum Travel Visa card, is $90 a year to own. They do offer some coverages, but again, not a ton. They do at least have mobile device insurance, both of them. The First Class Travel does have emergency out-of-province medical insurance and trip cancellation interruption, but not the Platinum Travel Visa card. They do offer points, a lot of points, but the points are basically TD points, which are not that great. They're worth about half a cent each. So if you see like 8 points, that's basically like 4% value back. So 4% value back basically on travel booked through Expedia or for TD. Basically 3% value back on every dollar spent on groceries, restaurants. Basically 2% value back on recurring bill payments. Overall, yeah, not that great, especially for a card that you're paying this much. You want to see at least some features or stuff like that. There aren't too many. There's like a birthday bonus, which is like some points. Again, 10,000 points, that's basically worth maybe $50 or something like that. So it's all right, I guess, but it's nothing crazy. You get an annual TD credit of $100 when you book at Expedia. That's nice. So that's $100 a year Expedia point. So that does give you at least some of that fee back. So that's good to see. So $140 a year fee, but you do get $100 of that back if you use Expedia. So for that reason, that card is actually not that bad. It might go like slightly in the lower B tier. But the Platinum Travel Visa card is just pretty useless. I mean, you get some points back, but it's very low. It's like 6 points, which is 3% value back on Expedia for TD, and even more on all this other stuff. So if this was a free-to-own card, that could be okay, but $90 is pretty close to stuff like Simplii Cash Preferred card, so not a big fan of that. So the First Class, I'm gonna put it in the low Bs or stuff like that. Let me just put that over here, maybe somewhere around here. Yeah, somewhere around there could make sense. And then the Platinum one probably goes somewhere in the middle. Let's see. Maybe like right around the Amazon card or stuff like that. And last but not least, these two cards again were asked for very heavily in my last ranking video. A lot of comments were asking, please do the triangle cards. I got it, guys. Don't worry. I'm going to do the triangle cards. We got the Triangle Mastercard and the Triangle World Elite Mastercard. So we got the Triangle Mastercard, which is free to own, and also the World Elite, which is also free to own, but does have a higher minimum income requirement at $80,000 personal or $150,000 a year household. So again, it does cut off quite a bit of people, but if you do have that income, you could get this card. But what do they get you, right? So they don't have too much coverages, so don't look at them for coverages or anything like that. They do have roadside assistance with the Triangle World Elite Mastercard, similar to the one TD card that we just talked about. So I know some people ask for that usually, like, oh, which card gets me roadside assistance? So the Triangle World Elite Mastercard is the go-to, the usual go-to for most people. But there is also that TD card that we looked at as well. But basically, you get a ton of cash back at Canadian Tire Did I say Canadian Tire in a second? Canadian Tire. So 4% back on Canadian Tire, whether that's Canadian Tire itself or other brands such as, Marks and stuff like that, whatever, Atmosphere, Sports, Rousseau, Hockey Experts, stuff like that. So 4% cashback. If you do spend a lot of money in these places, for a no-fee card, it's very good, right? So the only issue for me specifically is that I personally don't really go to these places all that often. I don't know if other people do. If you do, then by all means go for it. Specifically, if you have the income and you also want the roadside assistance, then the Triangle World Elite Mastercard could look like a really good deal. But if you don't, then maybe not, right? So they also get you 3% cash back on Canadian Tire, or in Canadian Tire dollars on groceries, except Costco and Walmart. So all other places, and that's for most cards, right? So for most cards, when they say groceries, it doesn't cover Costco or Walmart. So just keep that in mind. But it does get you 3% back, whereas the Triangle Mastercard gets you 1.5% back on groceries. And then the 0.5% back on everything else is not that great for the regular version, but 1% back on the World Elite version. So overall, and of course, each of these Canadian Tire dollars that you get back is basically worth $1 spent if you spend it towards any of these Canadian Tire brands. So overall, the regular version is not that great because it doesn't have like some of these features and the cashback rates. I guess if you are spending a lot at these places is okay. So this one is probably closer to something like a regular Neo card because in specific partners it does really well. But the Triangle World Elite Mastercard is a little bit better because you do have the roadside assistance and stuff like that. So I'm going to put it a little bit higher. So the regular Canadian Tire is going to go right next to the regular Neo card. For me, it's very similar. The roadside assistant version is probably going to go in B, so I'm going to put it right here, maybe above the Amex Gold card. That looks about right. So this is the final tier list. If you watch this whole video, you are a trooper, because I can only imagine how long this video turned out. I've been recording for God knows how long. I barely can't speak anymore at this point. My voice is gone. But here we have it. We have 5 beautiful cards in the S tier. We have 5 great cards in the A tier. A bunch of stuff in B. And again, for some of these cards, even in the B tier, specifically for some people, it could be very good. Like the Neo Cathay, for example. For some people, it's very valuable. The Neo card, again, the Neo World card, I believe that is, for some people is, again, very useful, particularly if you spend a lot of money at those partners and stuff like that. Some people might look at the Scotiabank, the gold same Scotiabank card. Some people might look at, the Triangle World Elite and stuff like that. So, and some people might just pick up the Costco CIBC card because it's free to own anyways, and they just go to Costco once in a while, so they want to have that. So there's definitely a lot of good options, right? But I would say that these cards, if you don't have any of them, the S and A, I would definitely look at getting at least one right away. And then you can take a look at the other cards as well, for sure, for your specific needs. But that's about it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. This is my full list. Again, you can take a look at it if you want to see the whole thing. Let me know if there's any cards I missed. I don't think there is, because good God, how many cards were these? This took a long time. But if there's anything else that I missed, let me know in the comments down below. And if you disagree with any of my rankings, also let me know. But also make sure to include your reason. Let me know why you would put certain cards some other places. Like, what specifically do you think is that I was neglecting or maybe not giving enough credit to? So let me know that stuff as well. I'm sure, again, this is all my opinion, right? So I'm definitely sure there's some stuff that other people have different opinions on. That's totally fine. We can talk about them in the comments, and I'm curious to know what you guys think. But if you haven't also already, make sure to smash the like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to smash the subscribe button down below and join the channel as well. And yeah, if you want to get any of these cards, again, I have all the referral links down in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for supporting the channel by using those links. And of course, with some of those, you also get quite a bit of cash rebate as well. So that's pretty nice. Happy to be able to get that for you guys. But yeah, let me know if there's any other questions or if you have any other feedback, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.